The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Everybody, thank you for joining us. This is the launch episode of the 8-Bit Suplex here on the Social Suplex Network. My name is Josh McLaughlin, and I'll be taking you on this journey through Impact Wrestling and a few other shows, as well as the wide world of video games. Joining me tonight and every week is my co-host Sandy Gaviria. Sandy, how are you?
I'm good, Josh. How are you? Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This is super exciting. Sandy and I talked about doing this. We've been talking to Jeremy Donovan about getting this together to launch on the Social Suplex Network. We both love wrestling. We both love video games. It's just, why not pair the two and make a podcast about it? At least, I'm a white man on the internet, so I feel like I should have my voice heard sometimes. But you know what? I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk. I'm happy to have fun. And Sandy, we have a special guest joining us tonight for the launch episode, don't we?
We do. I'm very excited. Jeremy Donovan is here with us tonight. Hi, Jeremy.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Sandy. Glad to be here with you guys. Excited for the launch of the 8-Bit Suplex.
Yeah, man. We're so excited to have you here. Of course, you catch Jeremy on the Ace of Podcasts, keeping it strong style here on the Social Suplex Network. And before we get started, I just want to throw it out there. The support for the 8-Bit Suplex is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. I have a Manscaped razor. I have used the Manscaped razor, and we'll talk more about that later in the show.
Oh, gosh.
Right. So, Sandy, you might want to plug your ears for that talk.
I will do that.
Maybe go and pour yourself some water. We'll talk about that. So getting into it, like I said at the top, we're talking Impact Wrestling here. As far as I know, Jeremy, the only show that's really going to be talking about Impact on a weekly basis on the Social Suplex Network.
That's right.
So give you a little background here. I was not a historic TNA watcher. I think maybe at one point I flipped it on Spike TV and I saw all the old WWE guys running around, and I said, "What am I doing here?" I just changed the channel. I kept moving on, right? And apparently I missed some bad Jeff Hardy days. I missed some really good Kurt Angle matches from what I understand. So there was some good stuff that I missed, but I'm happy to pick up now and kind of going forward, because I think Impact is, and we can get into this a little bit later, they're a company that I think is actually benefiting from not having fans in attendance, because they kind of didn't already. And so just having nobody there, I think it allows them some creativity. But Sandy, what's kind of your experience watching Impact or TNA going back throughout the years?
Honestly, same thing with you. I've always been since I first started watching wrestling when I was 8 years old, I was a diehard WWF, WWE fan. And of course, any competition to that I've always been like, no, I'm loyal. And especially when WCW came around, I was like, I refuse to watch Nitro. I am Raw for life. So kind of the same thing with TNA, and kind of like what you said, you see it when you're scrolling through the channels and you say, oh, hey, I know Kurt Angle. I know Jeff Hardy. This AJ Styles guy looks pretty cool. But never actually sat down weekly and kind of kept up with the product, unfortunately. And of course, back in the day, TNA, we know what that stands for. Wasn't really all about it. But I am very excited to kind of join this journey with you, as I think we can call ourselves new fans to the product.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for the Knockouts division. I mean, they are stacked, and I cannot wait to watch weekly and really get into learning more about their talent. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeremy, I know you're the wrestling aficionado here. I know you watched TNA back in the day. I know you watched WWE. I know you watched WCW. Chat us up a little bit about, kind of what your experience was watching TNA back in the day.
Yeah, so lifelong wrestling fan. I started watching wrestling like I was 2 or 3 years old, and have never stopped. Fast forward to '02. I was getting a little bit tired of WWE. We were in the middle of the Triple H, Reign of Terror. He was beating all the baby faces. He was beating RVD and Booker T and Kane. He was just, winning all the time. I was like, man, there's got to be something better out there. And, friend of the show, Ben Schaefer, hit me up one day. He's like, man, you got to watch this, TNA thing. Like this young AJ Styles guy that's flying all around. You got to watch this. So started watching TNA. I'll catch some of the weekly pay-per-views. Also Ring of Honor. That kind of shared rosters in the early days. And so seeing guys like Styles, Joe, Low-Key, Chris Sabin kind of going back and forth. And then Impact got on to Fox Sports Net, and I would watch. I think it was like every Friday at like 3:30 after I got home from school, it'd be on. And yeah, I was really digging it. All the X Division guys. Really fell in love with AJ Styles and Chris Sabin. Those were two of my favorite X Division guys. And yeah, I was pretty much, becoming a really diehard Impact fan. And then they got on Spike TV, and then eventually they decided to switch to Mondays and try to compete against Raw. Didn't work out so well. Had to tuck their tails and go back to Thursdays. But then it just got to the point where they were bringing in Hogan and Bischoff and Hall and Nash, and instead of relying on the young, talented guys that they had on the roster, they just kept pushing the older guys, the WCW guys, the guys that weren't putting out the best matches, but quote unquote had the star power. And there was a lot of mistakes they were making, and I just kind of fell off of TNA probably in the latter end of like 2008, 2009. And then, I would try and keep up with what was going on because there's still a lot of guys I liked, but I wouldn't really watch weekly. So, yeah, I'm kind of excited to get back into it now.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, like, I think there's that connection between what was going on there and then the fact that you had guys like Vince Russo back there booking, right? You had guys. Bischoff is there. You got everything's going on. I mean, how many different times you're gonna have? Bischoff's gonna push Hogan every chance he gets, right? So it's kind of when you go back there and you're like, yeah, okay, maybe skip past those parts, but like you said, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. I mean, Sandy, we might have to go back into the archives.
I know
a couple of times and watch some of these
watch.
classic matches. And Impact does this cool thing now, I guess. Where they actually have a flashback, and I'll mention that flashback moment later because I thought it was pretty funny who was featured losing in it. But so
I know exactly what you're talking about.
A little bit of modern day commentary, for what's going on. But yeah, no, like you guys mentioned, I consider myself a lifelong wrestling fan. I had a big break. I think a lot of people go through that big break. But for me, I was the exact opposite of Sandy in that WCW was the show that I watched. Monday Nitro was the show that I watched. And a couple of reasons. First reason is that it was on Channel 26 and ESPN was on Channel 27. And I was not allowed to watch wrestling as a child. So I would put it on 26. If my mom came around the corner, I flipped that button to 27 real quick.
That's so funny. Oh.
Especially too, like this is the late 90s, right? So you got all kinds of stuff being thrown out in the name of wrestling that, let's be honest, it was a coming of age story for young Josh at that point. Just seeing things I had never seen before and I didn't know what to do with. So, moms typically have an idea of what you can handle. And I thought she was wrong then. Maybe she was right. I don't know. But needless to say, I kept watching WCW. I fell in love with the cruiserweights that they would throw out there. Lifelong Rey Mysterio fan. Don't know that we'll ever get the chance really to cover Rey Mysterio much on this podcast. So I'll just say that I think he's probably the most entertaining guy I've ever watched. And I know that's a very subjective thing, and I'm going to move on to the next topic so that Jeremy can't tell me I'm wrong. So, but no, and also, and we'll touch on this later too. But the WCW N64 games really drove that love of wrestling and video games, and got me invested in the WCW product, even though I was too young to understand what the big deal with Hulk Hogan being a bad guy was. When I started watching wrestling, Hulk Hogan was a bad guy. So for me, I didn't have that historical context, but I got invested in the product through the video games, and then of course the proximity to ESPN on Bright House down here in Tampa. So getting right into it for this week's Impact, we get a video package. Last week we saw Rich Swann come out to the ring, give a really impassioned retirement announcement because of the beatdown he received at Slammiversary after eliminating Eric Young in the 5-man elimination championship match. And Eric Young just obliterated his knee with a chair, kind of put it in the it's pretty nasty stuff. So we watched kind of a recap of that because Willie Mack came to the defense of Rich Swann after a beatdown again after the retirement announcement. And I thought it was a really good video package. It really set the scene for the first match. And then, I don't know about you guys, I was completely taken out of it, like, immediately, because I didn't realize that the brawl between Willie Mack that starts was not a part of the video package because there was no introduction to the show in between. I don't know if you guys had that same experience.
You know what? I actually didn't. Mine was the complete opposite. I kind of was able to see, oh, okay, this is EY, this is current. I guess I didn't notice that they didn't really do a separation between the two, but I really loved I thought it was a strong intro, in my opinion. We have the video package, we have the Y, and then we have EY and Willie Mack going at it, and I really enjoyed that. It looked like it was a brutal beatdown, and then it was an exciting way to start the show, in my opinion. I really loved that. It's better than the whole, 30, 40 minutes of one long promo telling you about what's happened and what's going to happen, a la Raw sometimes. Those things can be just so long. But I really enjoyed this. I really liked it. And the way they made their way to the ring, let's get it going. Let's keep it moving. I really enjoyed that. What about you, Jeremy? What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Sandy. I thought it was a great way to kick off the show. But yeah, it was kind of in a way jarring, but in a good way. It's like, the video packages, and
right.
you expect like the theme song and the opening Impact video to play, and then you would throw Josh Matthews and Matt Serena to get started. But yeah, they cut right away to the back, and Willie Mack and Eric Young are just going at it. Willie Mack trying to get revenge for his friend Rich Swann. And so, yeah, it was a great way. I love shows that start off with action. I agree with you. I don't think promos are the best way to start off. I think you need to start off with either a hot angle or a hot match. And so it kind of did both here. They started with this angle backstage that kind of spilled out into the arena that led to the first matchup.
Exactly. Yeah, start strong, finish strong is the way I like it.
Absolutely. And we see this every week pretty much with Dynamite, right? You turn on AEW Dynamite, you're getting a match right off the jump. It's going to be high energy. It's going to be awesome. Like this week's Dynamite comes out with the Young Bucks right away, right? And then there's a spillover. There's some beat 'em up stuff with the Dark Order, getting that match going. And this was a great brawl. Every forearm, every punch, every kick that Willie Mack and Eric Young threw, I thought every single one of them just felt like it hurt. Like it felt like it hurt. And you could feel the emotion in what Willie Mack was doing. He really just wanted to beat the ever-loving piss out of Eric Young. And Eric Young is just, we know Eric Young, he's just nuts, right? So he really sold that maniac thing really well. And I thought Willie, when he got into the ring and called him out and said, look, man, you're coming in here right now. And Eric Young tried to back out, but I thought Willie was really strong on the mic, really selling how much it meant to him that he beat up his friend Rich Swann. I thought, we got, like you said, the action continued into what I thought was a really good match.
I thought it was a great match. And yeah, going back to Willie Mack's promo in the ring, just so natural, easy flowing. Like, hey, he just wants to avenge his friend, Rich Swann. He just wants to say, hey, get in here and let's just fight like men and resolve this right now. Of course, EY being the coward that he is in the show, runs away. But no, I thought it was a really great way to get into the show. And the match was so hard hitting. I haven't seen Willie Mack wrestle in a little while. I'm obsessed with his PWG stuff and his other independent stuff. He is so freaking agile. And I knew this in my mind because I've seen him wrestle before. But then I'm watching this match and my mouth is just like, my jaw is dropped just seeing him do what he does in there. That kip up and that moonsault, I know we're going to get into it, I think. But my jaw was like on the ground. I was like, I can't believe this man can do that. I love it.
Yeah, Willie Mack is awesome. Such a great athlete for a guy his size. And yeah, I've been a fan of his stuff. I've seen a lot of him in Lucha Underground and some of the other indie stuff.
That's
Always been a fan of Willie Mack. And like you mentioned, yeah, his opening promo was so good. And you can definitely tell like it wasn't super scripted. Like they gave him some bullet points. It came off, very real and emotional. His best friend had to retire due to what Eric Young did. And, they let him be himself. You can tell the verbiage was stuff that he would say if this really happened to him in real life. And so it came off very well. The whole brawl was very raw and gritty, and it just came off really well. And then, going into the match, it was a great, hard-hitting match. I thought Willie Mack did a great job selling here. Eric Young was working over the neck throughout the match up here. Also, that would kind of lead to the finish. And I thought Willie Mack did a great job of selling and kind of making Eric Young look this monster.
Oh, yeah. That sell after the finishing pile driver, where he literally just looks like he's floating in the air. I'm like, how is a big man able to do this? And it just looked brutal. It looked like he just got destroyed, and it was great.
Yeah, and Sandy, you brought up the standing moonsault. A man that size should not be able to do a standing moonsault. And actually, I wrote down he does the follow away slam to the kip up to the standing moonsault. And just that transition, it was like watching a cruiserweight do it. It was effortless. And Jeremy and I talked after Slammiversary and watching Willie Mack's performance there. Like, I'm blown away with him every time he steps in the ring. I really am, because, like, he reminds me of a more agile, like, bigger version of like the luchadors that you would see on a Monday Night Nitro, right? Like, those guys were doing stuff that was super innovative back in the 90s. Well, Willie Mack at 6'6", 280 pounds is doing them like it's nothing, and it was he also did a slingshot crossbody down to the floor that you just watch that and go, why do people even try to get in the ring with him? It's I was blown away by it. But no, I really enjoyed this match, and the ending pile driver that Eric Young gets him with. It's good to see Eric Young doing pile drivers again.
Good.
Yeah, pile driver was great, and the whole story even just leading to that pile driver. Willie Mack hit the big stunner, one of his signature moves, and he could have easily either pinned him or he could have just gone to the top, hit the 6-star frog splash. But instead, he went out, grabbed a chair. He wanted to get some revenge. He wanted to injure EY, and he was going to do the Pillmanization and jump off the top rope on the chair. But EY got up and took advantage and was able to get that pile driver.
Yeah, that emotion that we discussed earlier. It's like, okay, he wants revenge. He wants to be there for Rich Swann and really get at EY. And it wasn't just about the pin. It was like, I want to hurt you.
Yeah, it was awesome. And let's talk a little bit about Eric Young, because my first introduction to Eric Young was in the NXT faction Sanity, and I really enjoyed his work in Sanity. I got to see them live a couple of times here in the House Loop. And I always thought, he was a guy that could really move in the ring. For whatever reason, the character they gave him to work with, I feel like they put a lot of restraint on it. And they kind of kept Eric Young from getting over. But what are your thoughts on that, Sandy? How much Eric Young and Sanity, and then after the call-up, being by himself, what are your thoughts about how WWE kind of treated that character?
I feel like with Eric Young, it's a pretty universal train of thought there, that Sanity was awesome. I think like 9 out of 10 people would tell you that. I know my friends, we loved Sanity. That entrance, because I got to see them at the NXT little coconut loop as well. Their entrance was awesome. Everyone in the group just was they worked so well together. They had that. They were a good stable, good group. They worked together. They looked great. I thought it was. I was very sad when they came to the main roster and unfortunately were disbanded. I love Nikki Cross, and then of course they kept their same characters almost, but they were just not together, and it just wasn't the same anymore. EY fell through the cracks, and I'm just very happy to see him in his new home in Impact again, being able to do what he loves. That makes me more happy than anything. Who cares what happened, what transpired? He's now able to do what he loves, and he's not just sitting in the sidelines. And he looks Can we talk about his looks for a second? He looks like a completely different person without a beard. I'm like, who is this man? I know it's him, but man, he looks wild.
He's probably the first guy that's ever shaved his beard and looked crazier because of it.
Yeah.
Right? It's usually the other way around.
But Jeremy,
Yeah.
because Eric Young this is not his first tour here in Impact. You know, when he came to NXT, I think there was a lot of excitement there, right? There was a lot of, oh man, Eric Young's gonna be in NXT. This is gonna be awesome, and it was for a while.
Yeah, Eric Young was definitely kind of one of the foundation guys in the early days of TNA, especially in that X division. They had a big faction called Team Canada with him, Petey Williams, a couple other dudes in there. Scott D'Amore was the coach of the team, and yeah, Eric Young was kind of this cult favorite. And his original character, he was kind of like this underdog. He used to be scared of his pyro. Like the pyro would shoot off, and he would like jump and be scared. And he was a really like funny character, and that kind of built this whole moment. He left Team Canada, and they had the whole like the crowd would chant like "Don't fire Eric," and he would like fight for his job every week until it got to the point where he kind of changed and started becoming like this more like serious psycho character. And then he went over to NXT. So yeah, it was pretty exciting seeing a talented guy like Eric Young come from TNA over into NXT. And I loved Sanity, like you guys saw them here on the Largo Loop, and I thought that Sanity was a great faction in NXT. I thought Eric Young, he does a really good job with that kind of like almost like a cult leader kind of psycho character, and he's a really solid in-ring worker. And I thought they did a good job with them in NXT, but then like we've seen over the years with so many NXT call-ups, say bring them up to Raw or SmackDown, they don't seem to have a real game plan with them. And it's like, yeah, we'll bring them to SmackDown, and then I think they might have won their first match, and then after that they lost, and then they broke them up. They put Killian Dane back to NXT. They sent Alexander Wolf to NXT UK to be a part of Imperium, and then Eric Young was just kind of by himself, and then he was on Main Event, and then we just never saw him at all. So like you were saying, Sandy, I think it's great that TNA is bringing, or excuse me, Impact's bringing back an Impact original, a guy like Eric Young who's still very talented and still has a lot to offer to the business.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, he was great in that Slammiversary championship match, and really felt like he was going to win it the way he started out of the gates. And then, it's just, I'm happy to see him clearly happy and enjoying himself. But, that's sometimes what happens. You get to WWE, they stifle your character and your creativity. And Sandy, you know this as well as anybody. Your character work, your art, that's your art form out there, right? So you're trying to express yourself through what you're doing in the ring, and if you're being told not to do things, that's got to hurt you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Wrestling is subjective, just like art, just like music, and just like with your art. And if you're an artist or if you're a musician, what's the point of doing something that's not you, that's not going to be your creative outlet? You might as well just go work in a 9-to-5 job office, or just have no hobbies. This is their career. This is who they want to be able to express themselves. We all deep down want that, but when it's something at that level, it's imperative that they let you kind of be creative and let you do what you imagine yourself as in wrestling. And it's very sad that they kind of took that away from him. But hey, now we get to see, I think, the best of EY is still yet to come.
I agree, and that's strange to say about a guy that's in his late 30s. But
yes.
He looks great. So moving on,
he just needs to grow his beard out.
I don't think he will. I think he'll keep it clean shaved with the shaved head. But we get a Wrestle House segment here, or Wrestling House. I saw this on social media. I saw who was a part of it. I'm a big fan of Taya. I'm a big fan of Kylie Ray. I'm a big fan of Tommy Dreamer, who pops up here and there. Tommy Dreamer, as I'll note, did send me a private message once. So it's a pretty interesting segment. Those of us that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, we remember shows like the Surreal, I believe it was the Surreal Life, where they would take a bunch of celebrities and they would throw them in a house together and they would just videotape it. And it was the most garbage television that ever existed, but you could not look away. I think one season had Vanilla Ice, Ron Jeremy, and and a bunch of other like has-beens and like it's a very strange concept. And then they've taken that, and I guess Big Brother would be another comparable. I never watched Big Brother,
Mhm.
but I don't know what is your guys' kind of first experience here watching Wrestle House. We'll start with Jeremy.
Yeah, so like you, Josh, I kind of saw some clips on Twitter of some Wrestle House segments. I was kind of like, okay, what's this? This is, a little bit interesting. And then I saw the first segment here, and I was like, okay, it's definitely a little bit different. But as you kind of watch it and you see more of the segments, it's a time where there's empty arena. It's a time where companies are getting creative, doing something different, and it's an interesting way to kind of build some personalities for a lot of these characters that might not get promo or mic time during regular time. So I definitely thought, it's kind of an interesting way to like take you out of the empty arena, show you some, characters you might be familiar with or not familiar with, and kind of build some personalities behind these guys. What do you think, Sandy?
Sandy, what do you think?
100% agree. So I didn't get to see any clips on Twitter. This is my very first time. So I'm watching Impact, and then this Wrestle House thing comes on, and I'm like, oh no, what is happening? What is this? So I'm like, oh, what are they doing? No. But I was so into it. I did watch the Surreal House. I was such a fanatic of those just garbage reality TV shows. I watched them all. Rock of Love, Flavor of Love. I love New York, the dating ones, of course, and then all the celebrity houses ones. Oh, absolutely love them. So I'm like, oh, okay, I see what they're doing. And it was nice to see some familiar faces. I was familiar with all the women's wrestlers. We had Taya, like you mentioned, Kylie Rae. I love Kylie Rae. And Sue and Susie now, I guess, right? She was wrestling as Sue Young. Now she's Susie. I don't know what happened there, but I'm sure I'll get to find out a little bit while watching Wrestle House. But it was nice, and it was a nice introduction to a lot of other male wrestlers. I don't think I knew any of the male wrestlers in the house. So this is a nice little introduction to them. Get to see what they're about, their personalities. I was really into it. I was like, oh, show me more of this, show me more of this, and I was very excited that throughout the show they did have some more clips.
Yeah, and what was funny too, and this was the first of 3 segments I think that we got from Wrestle House. The idea that Taya is kind of running the show because, hey, listen, I'm Taya. You got to listen to me, right? And we're going to watch this amazing movie, and it's going to be the best movie you've ever seen. All the critics love it. And then it's just the best of Taya in Impact's highlight reel.
Perfect.
I did laugh out loud at that. I thought it was pretty funny. And then, we'll get into it later on, but some of the reactions in the room to kind of what was happening. And then there was a weird kind of love story kind of happening in the background with Susie. And Alicia kind of is like helping her get ready for this date. And then the other guy, I didn't know him. His name escapes me. But they got set up on the date, and she shows up.
Cousin Jake.
There you go. Yeah, cousin Jake. So it was pretty corny stuff. But I thought it, like you said, Jeremy, what are you going to do? I mean, you got no crowds. You can only throw so many matches in a show before people start kind of getting wrestled out, right? Professional wrestling always had stuff mixing it up, always had crowd reactions, hot promos, fan interactions. How do we keep it going? And, TNA Impact has always been done pretty good from that perspective of taking it and doing the scripted content. Obviously we have, Matt Hardy to thank for that, going back a few years. But I liked it. I thought it was a good segment. It led up to cutting out of that, a back scene, and I believe it was Rhino gets jumped. I don't know the context of that because I didn't watch last week's Impact, but I don't think that's the last we'll see of that. And then, we'll jump into the next match here with the freshly signed Kimber Lee. I got to know her as Abby Lath in NXT, and I got to see her what wound up being her last NXT house show, where she was jobbed out to Shayna Baszler in like 2.5 minutes. She's been on the record that she was not happy at NXT, didn't really like what they were kind of having her do. I don't think she was used to just going out and jobbing to people in 2 minutes at house shows. When if you look at some of the matches that she's had in the past, I mean, this is a woman that's done a lot of intergender wrestling. She's wrestled Drew Gulak. She's wrestled Chucky T. So, she's got a lot of matches under her belt. So, I'm happy to see her in a place where it looks like she's going to get some opportunity. And, I heard, Sandy, you're saying you're a big fan.
I love her. I think she is a solid worker. No matter, like going back to wrestling being subjective, you're going to have people you like and people you dislike, but you can't take away the fact that she is such a great worker. Her selling, her execution of every move, she's very precise, she's very clean, she's very aggressive. She goes out there and it's a hard hitting fight. And now this one too with Jordynne Grace, right there,
Right.
par on par. It was such a good match. 5 stars from me.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with both Jordynne Grace and Kimberly. I've seen a lot of Kimberly's independent work before NXT and Impact. Kimberly, she would often work. So there's a women's promotion called Shine, which is a part of the WWN network that tours here in Tampa. They normally wrestle in the Orpheum. And so I've seen a lot of Kimberly and Jordynne Grace on Shine shows. And then I saw a lot of Kimberly. She did some Ring of Honor stuff. And she was kind of one of those top independent names that you would hear on the women's side, kind of in that 2000, like the late 2000, time frame. And then she got over to NXT. It's like, yeah, another exciting signing, another, solid woman they're picking up from the independents. And for whatever reason, it just never worked out there. And you can kind of tell towards the end of her run, it kind of felt like she kind of fell out of love with wrestling. It was maybe a little just not motivated. And even some independent stuff after NXT, you can kind of tell she was still kind of getting her groove back. But it's the first time I've seen her in a while now. And she looked, top of her game. She looks motivated again.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought she had a good outing here with Jordynne Grace.
Yeah, I agree. And, obviously, we're big fans here of Jordynne Grace. She is, you don't get to wrestle in a posse with Scott Steiner unless you're not just super strong, right?
Yes.
She is, she looks strong. Just every time she steps in the ring, she's in control of what she's doing. She's hitting hard. These are not like, late 90s era diva punches she's throwing, right? She is throwing huge forearms. The slams that she does are just, there was a sidewalk slam she did that I was just like, I would have believed it as a finisher. It hit that hard. So I'm with you there, Sandy. I'm not great at star ratings and I wouldn't start to try now, but I really enjoyed the match. I really think, and I think we'll have this theme of the knockout division really being something positive that we talk about on this show. Mm-hmm. They have some of the best female wrestlers, really in professional wrestling. And, we didn't even get to see their champion wrestle tonight, Deonna Purrazzo, which, in forthcoming episodes, we'll probably talk about her a little bit more and how I think she had a similar experience to Kimberly where she got real jazzed up, went over to NXT, and then wound up on main event. Never won on TV, but here at Impact, you can see they know what they have, and they're just they're letting the talent express themselves and work the way that they want to work. And I thought, everything down to the finish when Jordynne Grace puts in that headlock, Kimberly knows she's done. Like there's no hesitation. Get me out of this thing now, and she taps out immediately. And it was like super I felt like no headlock has been more believable in women's wrestling than that one I've seen from Jordynne Grace. Because Jordynne Grace could put me in a headlock, and I feel like I would have zero chance of getting out.
I will put a bet on that too.
Thank you, Sandy, for your confidence.
Sorry, Josh.
No, that's okay. For the listeners that have never seen me, I'm a 6'1", 300-pound man, and I'm terrified of Jordynne Grace. On the record, on this podcast, through your ear holes, I am terrified of her, and I would never, ever step in the ring, or really, quite frankly, in a hallway if it was just the two of us.
Yeah, Jordynne is one powerful chick, and definitely displayed her power here in this match. The one little pet peeve I would say just overall in this situation, so I'm kind of the old school mentality of like when you just sign somebody and you bring somebody new and you don't kind of beat them off the bat. And I know Kimberly, I think she's had some matches before with them before she was signed, but now she's signed, and but it's a tough situation because they're putting up against the number one contender. Jordynne Grace is going to end up facing Deonna Purrazzo next week on night 1 of Emergence. So obviously you don't want to beat the number 1 contender, and then also you have the new person too, and so it's kind of a tough position. So, but anyway, it's still a nice short match of established Jordan as that dominant force in the knockouts division and showing why she's getting a title shot again.
Yeah, Big Mama Pump, I think is what she went by when she rolled with Scott Steiner, right? So, I mean, she definitely, I mean, she's showing it, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know. She can wrestle every week, and I'll watch. I'll tune in,
Yeah,
So,
Jordan's awesome.
And Jeremy, I completely agree with what you just said, but to me, so I thought about that. I'm like, okay, they just signed her. They're saying in commentary, great, she just signed a long-term deal with Impact, and now she's over here just losing right off the bat. They can't always win. As much as we want talent to see, hey, yeah, we want to see them out there and win. But I thought this was a really strong showing, even for Kimberly taking that loss. There was a lot of great back and forth. For anyone who may not be familiar with her work, they were able to see, oh, she can hang in there with Jordynne Grace. That's the number 1 contender. So I agree with that pet peeve because we see it so often, especially in the big companies, the big guys. But I thought it was still a great showing for both of them, and I was just you guys should have seen me watching it. I was like, yes, girl power, Jordan, lift her, throw her, yes, and that dive from Kimberly doing her swanton. Oh my gosh, I love seeing her do that. I love these two. I could say a million more things. But let's just leave it at that.
yeah, exactly. And we'll actually see we'll talk about another debut on Impact later that kind of goes through that the same kind of pet peeve, Jeremy, that you talked about. But moving on, and this is the part of the show I cannot wait to talk about, and that is Madison Rain's locker room talk.
Ooh,
I can't even say it with a straight face. This segment was awful, and Sandy and I, we had this agreement when we decided to do this podcast. We are going to stay positive, and I'm going to say that positively. Skip this segment if you haven't watched Impact this week. But I will say, I loved Heath Slater's little advertisement that he quote unquote paid for to try and get him signs to Impact. I thought that was kind of funny. And then, he only paid for 30 seconds, so of course they cut him off. But, if you want to get him to Impact, you can start tweeting with the hashtag Heath4Impact. And that's the number 4. I love the part he runs out. He's like, "Hey man, I still got kids," So it's like,
I love it. I thought that was so clever.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I don't. It's obviously they used it as a vehicle to continue what RVD and Sami Callihan are eventually going to have. I assume a match probably at Emergence. It looks like shaping up probably week 2 because that week 1 card's kind of full. Sandy, did you have anything you wanted to add to the discussion about locker room talk?
So sticking to that positivity mindset, because I am all about that. When Sami Callihan, so Jeremy, maybe you can give me a little bit more insight on this. Sami's kind of doing like the hacker situation, the hacker gimmick thing that was kind of teased over in NXT back when he was in there.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. So, I know pre-pandemic, he had OVE with the Chris brothers. And I know one of the Chris brothers got involved in the speaking out situation. He got released from Impact.
Oh.
So when they came back and started doing shows, it kind of went with this whole different direction with Sami. And it looks like they did a babyface turn with him, and now he's kind of doing, or kind of a tweener turn. He kind of was in this rivalry with Ken Shamrock, and now it looks like he's doing the hacker gimmick again.
Oh, okay. I thought that was really interesting. I was like, oh, okay. I remember this. This looks familiar. So I thought that was cool. I mean, that he has a good look for that specific gimmick. I'm not sure that it's really been super successful in the past, but I don't think he's been given enough time to kind of show it off. So maybe this time we'll be able to see more of that. And also, I really did enjoy when he did come out and then they started brawling with RVD. Did you see? She was wearing heels. Katie Force was wearing heels, and she is stomping on Sami Callihan. I thought that was hilarious. I was like, ouch, oh my God, this looks like a real beatdown. Oh my God, could you imagine that heel on your stomach, on your back? So I enjoyed that.
As a married man, I can, Sandy. But, but I actually thought that Katie Forbes those stomps were actually a little bit more believable than those working punches that RVD was throwing. Um, you know, there was a time that I thought RVD was the coolest guy ever because who didn't think, oh man, 420, right? When we were like teenagers, he's so cool, like he's so rebellious. He smokes pot and Russells. And now I'm just kind of like, man, you're like 50. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Rob Van Dam doesn't do it anymore for me, but for some people, I guess it does.
Yeah, now we're seeing old man grumpy RVD. He's always been the smiling baby face, but now in his his old age, he's become a heel. He's grumpy now. He's got the hot Katie Forbes, and he's living his best life after his real life divorce, and he's living life right now and only caring about RVD. So it's really weird seeing him in his kind of heel role, and it's a little bit different for him.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know anybody that's had a real life divorce and then decided to date two women at once. That doesn't really, I don't, I guess one didn't work out, so go for two, I guess.
You know what's funny? Yes, he's a heel, and we're also used to that baby face, that crazy athletic and acrobatic RVD. But this doesn't feel forced to me. Like you guys said, he went through a real life divorce. Now he has a new smoking girlfriend. Who knows if this is a short-term thing or a long-term thing? We can't really estimate that on people's personal lives, but it doesn't feel forced. They are really dating. That is really what he's trying to live his best life. And, maybe he's a heel because some of us may want to be like that at 50. Not all of us. But you can easily dislike it, but it doesn't feel forced. And I do enjoy that. I enjoy that very much.
Yeah, well, we talked about locker room talk more than I thought we would, but there is something there, right? I mean, obviously, this is they did the segment. I thought Madison Rayne was funny. Like, she immediately is like, "Yeah, I'm out. You guys are just laying it on hot and heavy. I'm not gonna stick around and watch you guys make out. See ya." Like,
Yeah.
I thought that was funny. And I would say this too. While I brought her up, I actually really like Madison Rayne on commentary. I think she does a pretty good job of kind of saying what's going on. Josh Matthews doesn't really do a whole lot for me, but Madison Rayne I enjoy on commentary quite a bit.
I agree. I actually made sure to note that on here, and I enjoyed her and Josh together. I think they're a good working team. They have that back and forth a little bit, and it didn't take away from the show to me, and I enjoyed their commentary.
Yeah, little brother sister-ish.
Well, the funny thing is they're married in real life, and so I'm sure that chemistry works out perfectly, obviously being married. And so it's funny on screen in kayfabe, they're not married. So they kind of pick at each other and kind of, make jokes at each other. But also, in real life, they're married. And so they have this great kind of back and forth chemistry. And I think they're a good team for right now.
Yeah. And it's, I like her on commentary a lot more than Don Callis at Slammiversary. But that's in the past. We're moving forward. We're staying positive. So we have next another backstage segment here, but this time we have the Rascals, and Trey Miguel comes out in the suicide mask and kind of spooks Dez a little bit, who is scheduled to have a match later on with Suicide. And Moose comes by and offers up a challenge for his title to who he thinks is Suicide, but it's actually Trey Miguel in the mask. I thought it was kind of a funny backstage thing. You push the envelope a little bit sometimes because Suicide and Trey Miguel have a little bit different build. And also he was wearing his Rascals jacket. But, I thought it was kind of a cool kind of, push the limits of, Moose is just not really paying attention. He's just ready to squash the next guy is kind of how I took it.
Yeah, and it's also kind of funny too, just because like the Suicide character has been played by so many different people. I know Christopher Daniels has played him. Chris Sabin has played him. Frank Kazarian has played Suicide. So many different people have played Suicide. So it's so funny that you just put the mask on and you're Suicide. And so it kind of fits in with the history of the character as well, too. So that was funny. You
transform. It's kind of like Sailor Moon. They look exactly the same. They have the same hair. All they did was change an outfit. Like, you can't recognize that? No. But you guys, this segment, to me, I was, as a person that's just starting to watch Impact, really, and that's been mostly, AEW, WWE, Japan, this was so good. It was so easy flowing, so natural. I felt like I was watching, like, a legit TV show. that I could
Mhm.
easily get invested to. I thought it was great. They did a great job.
Yeah, no, I think that we're seeing with these backstage segments, they feel more natural. And like Jeremy mentioned with Willie Mack at the top of the show, it doesn't feel scripted. It feels like, hey, the Rascals, they're hanging out, they're having fun, they're goofing around. There's obviously bullet points that they've pointed to that you have to hit, that this is where this story is going, but everything just feels natural. They're just being themselves. They're expressing who they are through their art form, and I really like it. So the next segment is segment 2 of Wrestle House, and this was the part that I thought was kind of funny, is AC Romero sitting on the couch eating popcorn, um, and he says, "Hey, the actress in this movie is pretty good. She reminds me a lot of the chick from Tank Girl," which is a callback to an extremely old movie that is not widely regarded as a very good movie. But I thought it was a good a good kind of thing. Larry D is kind of he's lost his mind a little bit, being kind of seduced by Rosemary, which is a very strange thing.
Yeah, so the whole background there. So there's this weird little love triangle between Rosemary, Taya, and Johnny Bravo.
Yes.
And so Rosemary was trying to, get Johnny Bravo's attention. So she made Larry D fall in love with her so that way Johnny Bravo would be jealous.
Yeah, and AC Romero is annoyed at this, that Larry D is not paying attention to the movie and what he's saying about the movie. Although, of course, what's great too is that we keep on getting these little snapshots of all the times Taya does her Road to Valhalla finisher, and we just keep seeing it over and over and over again to different wrestlers. And listen, Taya's, world class. She's an excellent wrestler, and I'll watch clips of her mixed into the show as much as they want to throw them at me. But then we get Tommy Dreamer popping up out of nowhere. To I guess and this is maybe for those of you that have watched Wrestle House from the inception. I guess when Tommy Dreamer pops up, there's going to be a match. And I thought, he makes a funny line about, "Hey, listen, this is the only way I get TV time this week."
I laughed so hard at that.
And, I just want to say too, listen, Tommy Dreamer, I don't know how he's still alive. I don't know how his brain still functions. I don't know how he can still walk. But God bless the man, because he is still out there working his ass off as much as he can. At Slammiversary, we saw him get slammed into tacks, which I don't need to see ever. I'm not a big tack fan. Shout out to Mankind. But Tommy Dreamer, one of the all-time greats, and obviously he's not afraid to kind of make poke fun at himself. But then we get a match between AC Romero and Larry D. I've never seen these two guys work. This was my first time seeing either one of them. It didn't really strike my fancy, but it's two big guys just throwing punches, doing what they can. They moved pretty well for their size. And it was kind of cool that everyone in the house kind of goes outside to the ring that's at the house. I thought it was kind of a cool little setup there. But what did you guys think of the match, Sandy?
So what was the name of the wrestler with the trunks? The bigger guy. Forget his name.
AC Romero.
AC Romero.
Yeah.
Pretty agile. He did what was it? It wasn't a drop kick. He kind of went up in the air, but he got pretty high because the other guy's very tall. So when I was watching him, I was like, oh, okay, he can go. It was a very short match, unfortunately, but I think it was actually the perfect length for what the story is trying to tell. They're tag team partners, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jeremy?
Right, yeah, tag team. I think they're Triple XL. I think their tag team name.
Oh, okay, perfect. So what the story there was perfect. They kind of just got into a disagreement. It was going to be a simple little match. It's not going to be a barn burner. They have no feud. It's just, hey, we're in a disagreement. Let's hash this out real quick. But I thought AC Romero?
Yep.
Why am I not remembering that? I thought he looked great in there. I was like, oh man, this big guy can jump.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of AC Romero. So I saw AC for the first time 2 years ago, All In Weekend. Josh #1 and I, we went to Chicago All In Weekend. We went to AAW He's one of the top indies in the Midwest, and that was the first time I saw AC Romero, and he was out there doing suicide dives and planchas and like drop
What?
kicks. Yeah, for this big guy. I'll have to show you guys. I have some videos on my phone. I'll have to show you guys. But yeah, AC is
Yeah.
super athletic, and he's actually been losing a lot of weight now and trying to get in better shape. And yeah, he's a really talented guy. And like you mentioned, this match obviously wasn't designed to really get him over or show what he could really do. It was just a small disagreement they had based on the whole Wrestle House scenario. But when AC can go, he can go. And so hopefully, you know, as you guys review Impact, though, you'll get to see more of AC and what he can really do.
I hope so. Like
Yeah,
I
me
said, very
too.
short match, and even with that, I was able to say, okay, this guy can go.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up too, Jeremy, that I mean he's been documenting. I think he's lost like 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Like he is
That's
significantly
awesome.
smaller than he was. And you know, as a fellow big man, I'm not that big. I don't know how he does what he does. But for his long-term health and safety, I'm glad that he's kind of made that decision to kind of go that direction. Um, and you know,
Hell yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching a triple XL match here in the near future. And then we get a nice little promo vignette from Deonna Purrazzo, who is your Impact Knockouts champion. I almost said women's champion, but they do call them the Knockout champion. I love Deonna Purrazzo. She is a very nice person outside of kayfabe. I think she's a great worker. I have a picture of her holding my son at an NXT house show that he still talks about. He's 4. And he still says,
so
"Hey, you remember
cute.
that time that the wrestler lady picked me up?" Like, yeah, man, I know. I wish I could have switched spots with you. But you know, I am very happy to see her wrestling, and I'm happy to see her in a place where she can be the virtuosa that we know and that we got to see prior to going to NXT. I'm excited to see her wrestle Jordan Grace again. That was one of my favorite matches from Slammiversary. I encourage everyone, if you missed Slammiversary, go back and watch that one if you watch nothing else from that show. I don't have much else to say. I really think that she's really great, and her being on Impact, I think, really raises the bar quite a bit for that entire division.
Yeah, really excited to see Deonna here. Good promo, challenging Jordan to a 30-minute Knockouts Iron Man match at Emergence. And
The
like
first
you mentioned-
ever women's Iron Man match, correct?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yep, first ever women's Iron Man match in or Knockouts is Knockout division
Knockout.
in Impact history. Yeah.
Wow.
And like we've been saying with a lot of talent, Deonna Purrazzo, another one of these women. I've seen her in Ring of Honor before. She was in NXT, and she's one of the, again, top independent women. Goes to NXT, kind of the same story as Kimberly. They sign her just to sign her, and there's not really a lot of, even NXT, there's not plans for her. They tried doing something with her every once in a while, and they'll like put her on TV, take her off, and then she got called to the main roster at one point, and it was just kind of all over the place. And so, yeah, I'm glad that she's an Impact. They're giving her a platform, and she's getting to do what she's good at.
I agree 100%. I think it's very hard to not like and not enjoy Deonna Purrazzo. She's just so technically efficient. She's clean and crisp in the ring. Everything she does, I feel she does with a purpose. She's very hard hitting. She's very technical. I have no idea how NXT and WWE could possibly miss on this woman. It just really makes you question, like, what are they looking for? What do they need in order to make someone succeed? They have so much talent. You see that with Kimberly and now Eric Young, EC3. Oh my gosh. And now Deonna Purrazzo. It's really unbelievable, and I'm very happy to see her and also jump up straight to the top of the division as a champion already. Pretty impressive. I do have to go back and watch her match with Jordan Grace at Slammiversary. Very excited to see the rematch at Emergence.
Yeah, no, and you know, when you talk about a lot of the times, right, in recent days especially, WWE, like Jeremy mentioned, they go out, they sign someone, they don't have plans for them. And then I think what you see, unfortunately, and this may be me reading into it too much, but I think WWE still has this issue where they're not going to push a female wrestler unless they think that she has the look. And the look oftentimes is flat stomachs, super muscular tone, not overly strong, unless you're push that to Nia Jax size, where you're this big monster, that they can throw out there as a monster heel for the women's division. So I think, you see people like Deonna Purrazzo, you saw Kimberly that was there that, don't have these perfect, magazine cover Mandy Rose kind of looking thing going on. And I think it's why, the Sonya Deville's of the world, even though they have the body, they don't have the blonde hair and the cover girl look, right? And so I think if WWE could push past that and really look at what talent they have in that locker room and really push those top stars based on their work, the way they do the men, I think they can get past that roadblock. But there's so many women in NXT right now. I wouldn't even know who to drop down, who to push, I mean, that's their problem that they got to figure out. All right, moving on. We got the no DQ tag team match. And I use the term tag team loosely. It was not really tagging going on, although there was some confusion. At one point, Havoc was standing on the ringside waiting for a tag, and I didn't understand that. But it's between Havoc and Nevaeh teaming together. They've been kind of a partnership here for a while, versus Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz. And I thought this was a fun little match. I thought it was interesting the way that right off the jump, Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz are like, they're introduced first, and then they go off the side of the stage, as if the other team is not in the gorilla position watching them do that. but and I don't know why Tasha Steelz came out with like steel salad tongs. I was trying to figure that out. I don't know. I don't get it. But I thought it was actually. I mean, there's a lot of really fun spots. I enjoyed the match a little bit here.
Tasha Steelz was in catering and just said, "Oh, there's a new DQ. Let me just grab this here real quick. I'll borrow it, bring it right back. Gotta get my hands on something. Hey, I would have done the same. Let me grab this traffic cone real quick and just everything goes."
Yeah, exactly. What I like about a lot of these no DQ matches that we see here in Impact is they go back and they do like the street signs like we used to watch and used to use like in the old WCW N64 video games. This will be a theme that we talk about here. You used to go and you'd pull out this giant ass stop sign from underneath the ring, and you just crank someone over the head with like a 4 times the size of a normal stop sign. And that's what Nevaeh at one point grabs a handicap parking sign and just starts swinging it at everybody. I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah, this was a real fun match here between these two teams here. Yeah, a lot of cool spots like you mentioned. Also they built to the big table spot where they eventually got Jessica Havoc on the table. And that was their whole game plan, pretty much, where the whole match was to kind of isolate Jessica Havoc. She's the bigger, stronger one of the team, and isolate her, get her out of the ring, and then they would double team on Nevaeh. And then eventually they got Havoc through the table, and then they were able to kind of finish off Nevaeh.
Hogan and Steelz, I thought, did a superb job in keeping Havoc at bay to get the upper hand. That was like you mentioned, that was the story throughout the entire match. Josh, like you mentioned earlier, when Havoc finally got Tasha Steelz off of her and she got on the ring apron waiting for the tag, that was kind of confusing because, Hogan and Steelz were not abiding by that whatsoever, which makes sense. It's a no DQ, so why are you going to play by the rules and try to wait for a tag? So that was the only part I was like, what are you doing? Get back, get in there. But I thought it was a very fun match.
Yeah, I liked it. And I thought, with the table spot, there was a point where Tasha Steelz puts the sleeper on Havoc while being on her back. And I thought, oh, man, she's going to sacrifice herself and just crank through this table and have Havoc crash her. Dude, they set that up like, oh, my God, this is going to be the worst bump ever. And then she, slides off, gives her the kick to the leg, and then, Kiera Hogan's able to kind of finish the job there. Kiera Hogan gets the pin after Tasha Steelz gets hit with that handicap parking sign from Nevaeh, and then does a bridging fisherman's neckbreaker, which was, I thought, a pretty good finish. Kiera Hogan, I've seen her wrestle before. She had a couple of really good spots in the what they call the Gauntlet match at Slammiversary. It was more of a 1-by-1 battle royal kind of thing. But she's really good. I enjoy her matches. Tasha Steelz, I think, is someone that's going to come up this division and really make a name for herself. She seems to have a lot of really good natural ability. And Havoc and Nevaeh, they're both going to play that kind of monster heel kind of role as a faction. I mean, the match worked for me. I liked it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
And then we get to the alluded to match between Suicide and Dez. And they start going. Sandy, you were excited for this match. Jeremy, you were excited for this match. I was ready for this match. And then
Womp, womp, womp.
I was so devastated when I heard the music of the Good Brothers. Doc Gallows, Carl Anderson. I mean, listen, if you're trying to get heat, that's how you do it.
Nailed it.
They got heat with me for busting up that match. They were supposed to have a match, a tag match with Ace Austin and
Madman Fulton.
Madman Fulton, and I think that would actually be a pretty fun match. I'm a huge fan of Ace Austin. I think he can really go. I really enjoyed him in the Slammiversary Championship match. But man, I don't know. I was kind of hoping that we wouldn't see Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson too much in Impact. But since New Japan's not letting people over, because Japan's not letting people from the United States over, I think we're going to be stuck with the Good Brothers for a good long time here. But maybe they'll surprise me. Carl Anderson obviously has a pretty storied career over in Japan. Jeremy, you've watched a lot of Carl Anderson. Is Carl Anderson still someone you think that we can kind of get excited about seeing in the ring at some point here?
Yeah, Carl Anderson, had a really good singles run in New Japan. First Gaijin to make it to the G1 finals against Kazuchika Okada. Gato saw a lot in Carl Anderson and told people, Carl's going to be his future star, but, eventually he went to WWE with Gallows and AJ in 2016. And so, it's hard. We really haven't seen him in a singles role. He's kind of been in the tag role of the Good Brothers for a while now, so we haven't really been able to see what he can do. Because on Raw and SmackDown, whenever he did have a singles match, it was pretty much a squash, putting over whoever like AJ was going against or whoever they were pushing at the time. So, he's in great shape, and I think given the right opponent, I think he could still have great matches.
Yeah, and I think correct me if I'm wrong, but he is actually still has the record for the longest time as a tag team title holder with Matt Bloom. Is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, Sandy, what are your thoughts on the Good Brothers here?
I am excited to see them work again and not be jobbers.
A couple of nerds.
Excited. Oh my gosh, I did not enjoy that. But yeah, they won the championships in WWE, but did it really mean anything? No. So I'm excited to see them be those guys that they are deep down, just tough and angry and that attitude. I think it's something that's going to really make a positive impact in the tag team division. Though I do not appreciate it when they interrupt what could have been a great X Division match. Not happy about that, like all of us, but I'm excited to see them.
Yeah, it's definitely it's kind of weird because right now their faces, Dez and Suicide are faces, so you had two faces facing each other, getting interrupted by two faces, and so it's just kind of a weird dynamic. And you would think that would be something heels would do, come out, interrupt this X Division match, and it felt very WCW-ish, like when the Outsiders would come out and beat up Rey Mysterio and all the cruiserweights. So I really didn't like that kind of feel, especially with the Good Brothers kind of being the top one of the top face tag teams, and they're feuding with the heels and Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. But it did lead to a good promo and kind of set up the angle for Good Brothers against Austin and Fulton at Emergence.
That's a good point, Jeremy, because I wasn't too sure of who was what. Like jumping into the product, you're kind of still okay. This person face, this person heel, what's this person doing? You kind of get to figure things out. I figured they were faces, but yeah, that was a very heelish thing that they did. Like, why would you go out there and interrupt two other men trying to work? So that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Wow, now I have some more to think about. But I am excited to see them against what is his name? Ace Austin?
Yep, Ace Austin and
Yeah.
Mad McLaughlin.
Not familiar with Ace Austin, but he did a great job with the promo. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, that was a great. I thought that was a really good pre-tape. I mean, they like we've been talking about everything they did behind the outside of the ring. It really clicked for me this week. I really liked it quite a bit. Um, Ace Austin is obviously a guy that can talk, and he's getting a lot of reps. He's definitely, I think, someone that we'll see in the next year or two really be at top of the card, pushing. I mean, he was in the elimination match at Slammiversary for the Impact Championship. I think he's going to stay right at the top of the card. He's very talented. He's a guy. Guys like him, Chris Bay, some of these X Division guys, I really think have a really bright future. And I hope they kind of stick around in Impact and get to really build up and get some good matches and great bodies of work going here. Before they at some point get offered a paycheck, because WWE offers everyone a paycheck, and I can't knock anyone for taking it. So we have what I alluded to earlier in this next thing, which is the Impact flashback moment of the week, which is Eddie Edwards defending against the World Heavyweight Championship against Cody Rhodes. And we get to see a brief 5-minute clip here of Cody Rhodes losing his bid for the championship here. I thought that was kind of a nice little tongue-in-cheek here to kind of just be like, hey, look, we know on the on the actual cable channel that everyone gets, not whatever channel Impact is on. I don't know. I watch it on Fight 2 days later, but I thought it was kind of funny just to kind of like poke a little rib, like, hey, you never got our championship, buddy, right? Or you didn't get it here, right? So I thought it was pretty clever use there.
I completely agree. I thought so too, and I really enjoyed that little feature that they have. I guess we've had some great matches. We've had some great talent come through our doors. This is why we're still around. We are able to put a great product out there of entertainment and pro wrestling. And here is a clip to remind you of that. And I thought it was really clever. I enjoyed that. But it was funny that it was Cody Rhodes like, hey, this guy, he loses sometimes too,
Something we have not seen in a while.
Not for a long time. And I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon.
Yeah, I like these little flashback segments, especially for new fans jumping in and kind of see some older matches and just some other programs. Eddie Edwards was completely different than he did in 2016, and so just getting an idea of what his character used to be like and his look and his first world title run. So yeah, good little moment here. Yeah,
it's pretty cool, and I think too a lot of these flashback scenes they show the crazy ass 8-sided ring, and it's I've heard Christian talk about it before, how it's such a weird ring to wrestle in, and it's a weird ring to watch. But that is part of what made TNA and Impact kind of a different product, is that they would throw that ring out there sometimes, and it made for some really cool matches. We watched I think an X Division Championship match together a few weeks, maybe for a few months now. Quarantine time is kind of a passing thing, Jeremy. But that was you got to see Xavier Woods back in the day in there, and diving through the big ring there. I like the Impact flashback segments, and like we talked about earlier, maybe Sandy, we might have to go and do a flashback episode of this at some point. But really, really cool segment.
Agreed.
And we get segment number 3 here of Wrestle House. They're really leaning on this thing, but like I said, it's super entertaining. I really enjoy it. They had this joke going on that Alicia had told Susie, hey, if you get nervous, just tell them you got the runs. And Susie uses that. I mean, she probably says I have the runs between the 3 segments, I don't know, a dozen times. and for me, it didn't get old, but that's because I watch children's television constantly, and with my two kids, so that's the kind of humor that appeals to me. Um, but then eventually it leads to the culmination of the date not going well, and then Susie blaming Alicia for giving her bad advice. And as we saw earlier, when there's a disagreement between two people, it's time to call him Mr. Tommy Dreamer. And
Yep.
and
I
Tommy,
absolutely adore that.
it's like I said earlier. Anytime I see Tommy Dreamer working, it puts a smile on my face. Um, one of the best things that I've ever seen, wrestling related, and this is something you can go back if you're a WWE Network subscriber. The Edge and Christian show that Totally Reeks of Awesomeness. They had a Goonies spoof episode, and they lied into Tommy Dreamer, and he just kind of takes it. And he does the "Hey you guys," and I mean it's just, you go back and watch it. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, Tommy Dreamer is not afraid to make fun of himself. But so he announces the match here between Susie and Alicia. Um, I I don't have a whole lot of notes on it. I know they've worked better matches than what they put out there, and just kind of to go out there and squash um, the kind of minor beef they had, and Susie the whole time is yelling, "You gave bad advice," before she throws a lariat. Then I have to call this out, Jeremy. You know the spot I'm talking about. It's the James Boyd lariat spot of the match, where they both go for the clothesline. For the 50-50 moment, and they're both down the mat. And Sandy, you might not be familiar with the James Boyd spot, but shout out to James Boyd of One Nation Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Every time in a match, there's a 50-50, both wrestlers kick each other at the same time, headbutt each other at the same time, do a clothesline at each other at the same time. We call that the James Boyd spot. And when we watch wrestling as a group, all 9 of us in the room, as soon as it happens, we'll just yell out James Boyd. And so that's a little bit, yeah, we call it that. A little bit of inside baseball for the listeners there. If you see a 50-50 spot, just know that James Boyd is not happy about it. But anything else you guys want to talk about from the match before we get to the post-match tease?
Nope,
Yeah.
I am good.
Yeah, not much here. I mean, with these Wrestle House matches, they're kind of just short and something to kind of break up the action from into the arena. So I'm not expecting a whole lot, star rating, match quality wise. It's, just little stories to kind of break up the monotony of the empty arena. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, so I'm excited though for the Wrestle House match they teased for Emergence, and that is Kylie Ray and Taya. And listen, they got a little bit of a preview of that with Slammiversary's gauntlet match that Kylie Ray won. So she is technically the number 1 contender, even though Jordynne Grace gets the match against Deonna Purrazzo because of her rematch clause. Kylie Ray, fantastic worker. Taya, I mean, if you want to watch some good Taya stuff, go back and watch her matches with Tessa Blanchard on AAA's YouTube channel. You can get lost watching Taya matches for, always, just hours. But I'm really excited for that match. That might be the match I'm most excited about from night 1 of Emergence. And we'll give a little preview of Emergence night 1. But yeah, Sandy, chat me up a little bit about your love for Kylie Ray here.
She's so cute. Not only that, I think she's a tremendous worker. God, how can you? Another one of those. Like, how can you You could never dislike her. I almost just compared her to John Cena, but I don't like that. Let me not do that. She's just so likable, and she looks great out there. I have such a girl crush on her. Her finish. What does she name it? Smile to the finish. What a name! I love her. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, she's great. And she appeared in AEW. Is that right, Jeremy? And then do you have kind of some inside baseball as to kind of how she wound up at Impact when it looked everything was pointing towards her going to AEW?
Yeah, so actually, she was one of the first women to sign to AEW, and she was featured on the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, and there was a lot of backstage talk. There was a lot of plans to kind of push her as one of the top faces of their women's division. And then sometime before, I believe it was before all out and before they got on, she like mysteriously disappeared, and then it ended up coming out that she got released, and there was not a lot of really background on why she got released and kind of what the story was there, and nobody's really dug up the history on what happened there. But apparently, I think it might have something to do just maybe with her mental health and just kind of the state she was in during that time, because she has no ill feelings towards AEW. She says nothing negative about AEW. But yeah, she just needed to step away from wrestling for whatever reason. And so, yeah, it seemed like she was kind of done wrestling. And then she started wrestling again in Chicago Indies, and then eventually came to Impact.
Yeah, and I, you bring up the mental health thing. I do see a lot of times on Twitter she will advocate for mental health and saying, "Hey, man, sometimes people just need to breathe. They need to step back." And I think that's a good message for everyone, and not just people in professional wrestling. But hey, listen, if you're not in the right mindset, if your head's not there, take a step back. It's totally cool to do that. Get yourself correct. Talk to whoever you need to talk to, and if you have anything like that, definitely make sure that you talk to somebody, a close friend, relative, professional in the mental health space. I guess that's my little PSA there, but it is super important, especially for someone that plays a character that is super smiley, super bubbly. That's it's important that if you're going to put that face on, I think you have to at some point backstage get yourself that way too.
Absolutely agree, you guys. I'm really excited to see her. She looks great. Hopefully that time off was able to kind of get her refreshed and a new mindset. And I just wish nothing but the best for her. As I cry tears of joy that she's wrestling again.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one with a crush here, Sandy, on Kylie Ray. I think that's a popular internet opinion.
Yep.
Yeah.
and listen, she looks completely shredded right now. Like her, I mean, I think I could do laundry on her abs. I mean, that's a washboard if I ever saw one.
Oh my gosh, her abs are out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm really excited for that match. Then after that, they had a brief preview of the Emergence card. We'll come back to the Emergence card and do a quick preview. But first, we got to talk about the Impact World Title defense, which was an open challenge. There was rumblings that it was going to be Eric Young, but even Madison Young was like telling Josh Matthews, like, "What are you, stupid? He already wrestled tonight. He's not going to come out again." He's like, "Well, he's kind of a maniac, so he might wrestle twice in one night." And so I actually legitimately thought he would. And then, Eddie Edwards kind of comes out and he kind of pushes that narrative, cuts a pretty good promo calling out Eric Young. And then we get a surprise, and maybe not the biggest surprise in the world because they've been teasing his arrival. But it's Brian Myers, who we all know and maybe love as Kurt Hawkins, the lovable jobber that lost how many matches, like 220 or something in a row.
Yeah, something like
that. In WWE before teaming up with Matt Cardona. Brian Myers, super technical wrestler, runs a wrestling school up there in Long Island. He's someone that I think deserves a lot better in his time in WWE. As you can see, this is a theme on the show. But I was pleasantly surprised by this match.
Yeah, Brian Myers. Yeah, Brian Myers is one of those guys. He's really underrated, and I think part of it, like you mentioned, is because of the role he was in WWE, and both of his runs there of this kind of underneath job guy. But he does have that school in that Long Island area. He actually trained MJF, and so yeah, he's a guy that kind of has a basic kind of solid fundamentals of wrestling. And then Eddie Edwards is just amazing. I think most fans probably know Eddie for his tag team work with the American Wolves with David Richards in Ring of Honor. They had a lot of great matches with the Bucks and the Briscoes and all that stuff. But Eddie's really broken out as a singles guy, and yeah, he's another solid worker. So yeah, it was a really solid matchup here.
I was very excited. Brian Myers, he such a technical wrestler. I just can't believe what's happened to him in WWE. He is one of those talents where everything he does is precise, it's clean, it's hard hitting. He's very smart in there. He's very technical. I mean, every checklist that you could possibly think of for what makes a great pro wrestler, he checks off easily. And it's just a shame that he wasn't able to showcase that for that wider audience. But very excited to see him in Impact. This was such a great match. I'm not too familiar with Eddie Edwards as a singles wrestler. Like you mentioned, Jeremy, I am familiar with his work as a tag team, but never really seen him in this kind of role before. And I actually was not even aware that he was the world champion. So I was kind of surprised, but after the more and more the match kept going, I'm like, oh, okay, it makes sense why he's the champion. That was an amazing match. I was very excited to watch this.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was gonna say this is the one time where I didn't mind the new guy coming in and losing, because obviously it's a world title match, and it's a former WWE guy, especially being on WWE TV as a jobber, it would look really bad, obviously, if you have a jobber coming in and beating your world champion. So here's one of the instances where I didn't mind that the new guy came in and lose. He still had, got a 50-50 shot against the champ, still looked good, but obviously we got to keep the champ strong here.
Yeah, I thought, great hard-hitting match. There was a suicide dive to the outside that Eddie Edwards hit that was pretty aggressive. And it actually looked like, he might have actually banged up his knee a little bit. They worked that in the match some. But, I mean, both guys, super talented. I'm not super familiar with Eddie Edwards. I'm more familiar with Brian Myers. But I really enjoyed it. And I don't believe that Brian Myers is officially signed at Impact. I think he's on a match-by-match kind of appearance thing, similar to like what Matt Cardona is working on in AEW. And then there's some other guys that are kind of floating around that way. Obviously, I don't think Heath is signed to Impact officially. I know there's that kind of that whole he had to wrestle Moose and beat Moose to get in, and he lost, which we're used to seeing Heath lose. But yeah, I mean, Brian Myers, great match. Eddie Edwards, of course, finishes him off with the Boston Knee Party. I'm a sucker.
A name for a finishing move. I was like, what is he saying? Boston Knee Party? Holy crap.
And I'm a sucker for anything Boston related. Really, truthfully, my dad's from East Boston. My house was Red Sox baseball. I mean, through and through. So anytime I can see a Boston guy, not necessarily John Cena that we mentioned before. I do like John Cena, but I don't really associate him with Boston. But but Eddie Edwards, I mean, he's the Boston tough guy. Boston Knee Party, like you said, Sandy. I mean, there's I don't know that there's a better name for a finisher. And every time he hits it, it just feels devastating. I mean, the guy knows what he can do, and he does it well.
That's a new guy, Josh. We got to watch more of him. We both do.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna load up some matches here on the old tube of views.
Yeah, definitely check out some of Eddie's old work, especially his first world title run will be definitely good stuff to check out. And I thought Brian Myers, kind of to compare him to his tag partner Matt Cardona, I thought Brian Myers did a better job of kind of coming off well in this, kind of breaking out the WWE, kind of stink off himself, and did look really well. As far as Matt Cardona, I thought he was just kind of fine. He didn't really do anything to stand out, and I feel like Brian Myers kind of stood out here, and you could kind of see it could be more believable that he could actually be moved up the card.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Can we
there,
also
Jeremy.
discuss for like a second how jacked Matt Cardona? My accent's coming out. I may not be able to say his name exactly right, but how jacked he looks on AEW. I was blown away. I was like, okay, he's been away from WWE. When did the Exodus happen? That was only a few months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like April, wasn't it? Like after Mania, I think.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, quarantine time is playing tricks on me. It feels like months. It feels like years. I mean, but it could have been yesterday. I mean, truthfully, I would still feel like it was 6 months ago. But
True.
you know,
Yeah, he's jacked.
yeah, he looks great. Brian Myers looks great. A lot of these old WWE guys look great. They look in better shape than they've ever been in. Um, I'm absolutely loving what I'm seeing out of those guys. So with that, I mean that was a great sign off for Impact, which means that Eddie
Overall
Edwards.
consensus. Oh, so sorry, Josh.
No. I go ahead. Give your overall consensus.
Overall consensus, Impact has got it going on right now. I am excited to keep watching. I don't think there was anything on here that was like, oh, what is that? Cringe. I enjoyed 99.9% of the show. Very excited to be able to watch every week and discuss every week with you guys.
Jeremy?
Yeah, overall, yeah, really fun show. I've really, Impact really caught my attention last couple of weeks. We're bringing back the Motor City Machine Guns and them winning the titles from the North, and so yeah, definitely keeping up with Impact now. And yeah, it was a fun show, fun, easy watch. Hour and 25 minutes if you're watching the Fight TV version with no commercials, and yeah, pretty easy watch. The wrestling was pretty solid. The promos were good. Advanced some stories. They got you hyped up for Emergence, the 2-week special that's coming up.
Yeah, and I like this kind of going into Emergence, right? This was a great kind of a go-home show for that. They set up what was going to be happening on the next card, which a lot of times that company that rhymes with Schmentertainment doesn't do a great job building towards their pay-per-view cards. I thought Impact has me excited to watch, even though it's a back-to-back Tuesday nights. Pretty excited to watch what is going to be a pay-per-view level card. I'm with you there, Sandy. I didn't at no point watching this show did I go, man, if I was watching it on TV right now, I'd change the channel. And a lot of wrestling programming today has those moments. So, I mean, if Impact can give you an hour and a half of content that doesn't make you want to change the channel, there's no excuse for these other companies to be still putting out garbage. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. Impact's not running on the same budgets. They're not making the same amount of money. And they don't have the size of roster that these other companies have, and mainly just one company that I'm talking about. There's no excuse really to not put out 90 minutes of really fun wrestling programming. But hey, maybe I'm wrong. So
No, I think that could be a general, yeah. I know it's a strong opinion, but I think it's one that a lot of people could agree with for sure.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? Tweet at us at 8-Bit Suplex on Twitter and tell me if I'm wrong or right. And if you tell me I'm wrong, don't worry. I get told that every day by my wife. So I'm kidding.
Oh, no.
My wife is great. She's a fantastic woman and a fantastic mother and a fantastic wife. And anything I say
and a fantastic baker.
Yes, Jeremy has had my wife went to pastry school, and she does make a recipe of her own creation, chocolate chip cookies that will taste nothing like any other chocolate chip cookie you've ever had. And
they were.
Yeah, it might be a reason why I am now heavier than I ever have been in my life. We're coming up on 7 years of marriage, and having 2 kids. So
congrats.
that's thanks. Yeah, I mean, we'll hit 7 years in November, but I think we can count it as 10 because quarantine years.
That's 3.
That's got to be like 3 or 4 in one. But it's not maybe I don't want to claim that because the 10th anniversary gift I think is more important than the 7th anniversary gift. But there's a lot of pressure on that 10th anniversary gift. I gotta start playing that out now. Thanks for reminding me. But yeah, if you're ever in Tampa and it's not coronavirus season and you want a good chocolate chip cookie, let me know. I'll see if my wife will make you some.
I'm taking you up on that offer right now.
But listen, my wife does love Sandy. They play Animal Crossing together.
Animal Crossing!
Right, yeah. Because remember, this is also a video game podcast. We'll talk about Animal Crossing later in the show. Yeah, I mean, check it out. Cookies, They're awesome. And what also is awesome is this. I'm looking at the official night one match card for Emergence here. Like I said, Eddie Edwards, after defeating Brian Myers, means that he is now defending in his open challenge night one of the Impact with the Impact World Championship. We'll see. It's probably going to be Eric Young, but you know what? It could be, I don't know. It could be Heath. They might throw a curveball on there for night one, maybe night two we get Eric Young and Eddie Edwards. But I'm excited to watch another Eddie Edwards championship defense.
Hell yeah.
And it might be a better open challenge than what's on one of the other channels. Don't at me, Floyd. We mentioned earlier the Good Brothers versus Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. Should be a real slobber knocker there. Impact X Division Championship. This one really caught my eye here because Chris Bay, who is the current X Division champion, he's phenomenal. He's wrestling against. It's a triple threat match that he was talked into, and we didn't mention it earlier on here in a backstage segment by Rohit Raju to make it a triple threat match with Chris Bay, Rohit Raju, and which we learned on Twitter, the greatest wrestler to ever live, TJ Perkins, TJP.
Yep.
So, Jeremy, why don't you get into that a little bit for maybe the people that don't follow TJP, which I kind of recommend not following him. But for those that don't, go ahead and fill them in on the greatness of TJP.
Yeah, so TJP put out a tweet a couple weeks ago saying that he's somebody asked about, has he learned is there one person that he's learned something from the ring from, and he was like, no, which is just ridiculous, being the fact that he's been in the ring with Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe. He was training the Inoki Dojo, the original LA Dojo, and he's wrestled so many talented guys. Like, you have to have learned from several of those guys that you worked, but apparently he thinks that he's the ultimate teacher. So we kind of rib around and talk about how the great TJP, but I actually do think TJP is a great professional wrestler. He's really, really great. He's one of my favorites in ring. He's a lot of stupid stuff outside of the ring, but when he's in the ring, I really enjoy his work. So it should be a pretty fun matchup here.
Yeah, and I watched watching TJP when he was a part of the Cruiserweight Classic, obviously with that WWE put on. I thought he had some really good matches. He's a great Cruiserweight wrestler. They put him on 205 Live, and he disappeared. I mean, what else can you say? He is a really talented wrestler. He does some really cool moves. And just like this podcast, his intro music is 8-bit video game sounding. So special place in my heart for that. I could jam out to his intro music. I haven't heard his TNA or Impact music that he's using now, but WWE, he had the 8-bit style. But I'm excited to see this match. Sandy, you seen any of these guys that would make you really interested in this match?
Of course, seeing TJP back when he was the cruiserweights, and he was a cruiserweight champion too, if I'm not mistaken, right?
The inaugural one, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So he, like Jeremy said, yeah, he may do some questionable things outside of his profession, his character that we all know and love in ring. But yeah, once he's in there, man, I don't think there's something that he can't do in there. So very excited. I'm not too familiar with Chris Bay and the other guy cannot.
Yeah, Rohit
I don't think Raju. I'll even try to say his name. Rohit Raju. There we go. And I need to get more familiar with him, and I'm sure I will once I continue to watch the Impact products. But excited to see. I mean, if Chris Bay is the champion, you guys are saying great things about him. I need to do some research before this match, but I'm very excited to see that. It should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeremy and I, we got the opportunity to see TJP work the American leg of the New Japan tour that was in St. Petersburg, Florida. I thought TJP put on a pretty good match. If memory serves correctly, he and his partner had to wrestle against Cole Cabana and I'm drawing a late night podcasting blank. Toriano. I
Yeah.
believe they had to wrestle those guys, and he puts on a pretty good wrestling clinic. Um, but we all know who the star of that match was, and that was Toriano. Um,
Freaking Yano.
hashtag Toriano's the greatest. So
Get
moving right
out
along
of
to
here.
Sandy, we're gonna fight later about this. Listen,
I will smack you.
I think it's because
Don't mess with Shooter Sandy.
yeah, Shooter Santos over here.
Santos.
For those that don't know, Sandy is training in the Lethal Academy to be a professional wrestler, and Jeremy and I have had the pleasure of seeing her matches. And much to the earlier statement about how I would not be in a hallway alone with Jordan Grace, Sandy, you and I will not be caught in a dark alley together because I know I will not leave that not bruised. So, anyways,
Better watch what you say on here.
well, that's why we're recording this over phone and not in person. So
I'll get you.
moving right along.
And steal
Moving
some
right
cookies
along.
while I'm at it too.
Okay, you can have. All right, I'll just keep a cookie in my back pocket for emergency use.
There you go.
So, moving right along here, we have the TNA Championship, which is held currently by Moose, and he's going to be defending that against Trey Miguel, who we saw he thought was giving the challenge to Suicide. But since he actually gave it to Trey Miguel's going to get the shot here. I've only seen minimal Trey Miguel, and I watched Moose shove Tommy Dreamer into some tacks. So I'm interested to see kind of how they want to play this match here, because Moose is much bigger than Trey Miguel.
Yeah, definitely a good big man, little man matchup. Trey part of the Rascals. I'm more familiar with Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz of the Rascals than I am with Trey Miguel, but I've seen a few of Trey matches and high flyer just like those guys. So this should be, the David versus Goliath kind of style matchup here.
Those are always fun. I'm excited.
Yep, and unfortunately, I feel like Goliath is going to win this one, but we'll see. Because Moose looks like $1 million, and he's just intimidating. Moving along here, and this is a tag team that you mentioned, Jeremy, that you were getting excited about watching Impact again. It's the tag team champions, the Motor City Machine Guns, defending against the North. The North, of course, dropped the titles to them post Slammiversary, and then now in a rematch here. Two really solid tag teams. This has a chance, in my opinion, to walk away as the best match of the night.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the tag title match that they had on Impact, where the Guns won the titles from the North. Motor City Machine Guns, one of my favorite tag teams ever. Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, so influential on the wrestling industry. Both guys, they've been all over the place. They've been in Ring of Honor, Impact, New Japan. We saw Alex Shelley. He teamed up with Kushida in the tag tournament they were doing on NXT. These guys have been all over the place. Super talented guys, and I'm so glad that they're back together. They're both healthy and back in action here. And then the North, great up-and-coming tag team. Josh Alexander, the Walking Weapon, and All Ego Ethan Page. Both these guys are great. They're from Canada. Solid tag team. This is going to be – I really enjoyed the first match. So this rematch should be great as well.
And I'll say, too, Ethan Page is jacked right now.
Yeah, he's another guy that's gotten in incredible shape during the quarantine.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Sandy, have you watched either of these tag teams, or is this another one we're going to do some research here?
Oh no, I am very excited. I agree too. I think it's going to be match of the night, hands down. No question. Ethan Page, he is just. I've been a fan of him for many years. I love how just completely honest he is about the business. How he seems like such a caring, down to earth guy. Not only that, but he in the ring, he's just you could his passion kind of flows through his work, through his promos, through his speech, and I love watching that guy. I'm not too familiar with his tag team partner, and of course watching Impact now, seeing the tag team, the North. I love the name. Excited to see them work together, but that should be in 10-10.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. And then the aforementioned Kylie Ray versus Taya Valkyrie. I mean, it's going to be a Wrestle House match. Hopefully, they go a little bit longer than the other Wrestle House matches that we've seen. But they might save something in the tank for those two later on, especially if we see Kylie Ray at some point get the Knockouts Championship away from either Deonna Purrazzo or Jordan Grace, depending on how that goes with Night 2. We'll preview Night 2 next week since that card's not 100% there. But I'm very, very pleasantly surprised with how good this week's show was. And it's a better wrestling show than some of the other ones that I've been watching. One of them is on Wednesdays, the other ones are on Mondays and Fridays, and you can kind of figure out from there. But I'm super excited about it, and I'm also super excited to talk to you guys a little bit more about Manscaped. So, Sandy, if you want to close your ears, close your eyes,
Close my ears.
whatever you need to do.
Oh no, all my senses are closed.
So, Jeremy, growing up, you try to do a lot of stupid stuff with razors. You think, I shaved my stomach one time just to see what it felt like, and I didn't use the right razor for it. I got razor burn pretty bad. When the razor burn cooled, I thought, okay, hey, smooth belly is kind of cool. But, that's something that I, as a 14-year-old, enjoyed only me because, let's be honest, 14-year-old Josh wasn't doing so hot with the ladies. But I did pick up a Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0 using the special promo code Suplex to get my 20% off and to get free shipping. And I got to tell you, it's a smooth shave. It's no hassle. It has an LED light to help you see in the shower. Because I don't know about you, my shower does not have a light in it because it burned out and I just haven't gotten around to replacing it. So having that LED light on the end of that mower is awesome. And also, the ball deodorant, it's awesome. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there. We live in Florida. It's super muggy. I've been in need of a product like this for a long time, Jeremy, and I'm happy to report that it is the money well spent. So if you, like me, want to use the right tools, head on over to manscaped.com, throw in the promo code SUPLEX, save yourself 20%, and get free shipping. And you know what? Not only will you feel good about yourself, but your balls will thank you too.
Yeah, great product. I also have me a Lawnmower 3.0. Make sure everything's nice and tidy in all the places. And yeah, it's a great product. Like you mentioned, yeah, use our promo code Suplex. You help yourself out and you'll help out this show and all the shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Which and I'll welcome Sandy back in here. Sandy and I are super happy to be a part of the Social Suplex Network. I'm a big fan of listening to just throwing on the feed and just hearing all the great voices that we have on the network. One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style are two of my favorites. Obviously, I know you guys. I go to wrestling shows with you guys. I talk to you guys daily through our Facebook group chat. Shout out to the Largo Loop. And I still listen to you guys talk about wrestling for a combined 6 hours every week because the shows are that good. So, even though, I think I might know everything you guys have to say on the podcast just from our daily conversations, there's always more. So head on over to the Social Suplex podcast feed on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And then also the individual show feeds as well. A lot of good stuff on there. So switching gears real quick, and we're going a little bit longer than I expected. Well, let's talk real quick about the AEW Women's Tag Tournament, the Deadly Draw. I think I got that right. It's a very wordy title.
Yep, Deadly Draw.
I was excited about this because I really enjoy a good women's wrestling product. I'm excited for what Impact is bringing with the Knockouts division. And, there's been a lot of criticism about AEW's women's wrestling product. They don't get a lot of love on Dynamite. You might see a 5-minute match on Dark. You might see a 2-minute match on Dynamite, like we saw with Swole and Reba this past week, a week ago. So giving the women a spot to showcase their talents, their abilities, have a little bit more room to breathe with their matches. I was super excited about it. And I was also hoping, and I still hope, that they will sign some of these women that they brought in for this tournament. We saw a pretty strong week 1 with the Nightmare Sisters. I think writing's on the wall about what they're going to do in this tournament, which is the team of Allie and Brandy Rhodes, and a really strong showing I thought from NXT castoff Tay Conti and Anna Jay, who is a part of the Dark Order. They both won to advance last week, and so this week we saw a couple of really good quarterfinals matches. We had first Big Swole and Lil Swole teaming up to go against Leva Bates and Roche Chanel. Now, I believe, and Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, that Big Swole and Little Swole used to work together in a previous promotion. Is that correct?
Yeah, they've teamed together in Shimmer, and I think they've probably teamed together in Shine too. Little Swole, better known as Nicole Savoy, a top independent women's wrestler. She's been all over the indie scene, Shimmer, Shine, Ring of Honor. She's been all over the place. She's a great worker, and I'm glad they brought her in for this tournament.
And she was in the Mae Young Classic, the first one, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Big Swole, Ed's Ariel Monroe was in the second one. I thought they looked really strong. Leva Bates and Roche Chanel, you kind of knew when they threw that team out there what was going to happen. I thought Leva is someone that I can see has potential, but I just don't. She's just not going to get the reps there. She's kind of shoehorned in with Peter Avalon, and doing the whole librarian gimmick. It's not my favorite character work, but she's given it her all, and she ate a pretty nasty finisher here.
Yeah, this was a fine matchup for what it was. Like you mentioned, Roche Chanel and Leva Bates kind of knew what you're getting here. This match was obviously more about putting over Swole, both Swoles here, Big and Little Swole. And yeah, sold that finisher pretty well there. Yeah,
and it was kind of a cool little tag team finisher here, where it was kind of like a flatliner natural selection kind of thing. It was really good teamwork here. Sandy, did you get a chance to watch that match?
I did watch the match. Unfortunately, sorry guys, I did not get to watch the entire of night 2. I watched the wrong night. I watched night 1. But I did get to watch the first match for the Deadly Draw night 2 quarterfinals. I thought it was hilarious. I was dying laughing when Little Swole was out in the ring and she's kind of just beating up on Chanel, and she just stomps over to the other corner and just picks her up, puts her over her shoulders, like, come on, girl, we got to go to our corner. I was laughing. It's like, focus here. We're in a tournament. And she's like, but how is she going to do me like that? I thought that was hilarious. Like you said, Josh, we all kind of knew what was going to happen here with Chanel. I'm not too familiar with her, but you can kind of see by what she's wearing, how she's acting, that it's going to be one of more entertainment, more comedic type of wrestler, which we can all enjoy. I don't mind that at all. But I thought it was a nice little first match for night 2. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, both women sold really well, and Roche Chanel, I think Vito made a comment that Lil Swole was working the purse carrying arm of Chanel, which would of course
Yeah.
something that says she really needed to not have happen. But and I'll say too, I really enjoy the commentary team that they're trying out for this. Really fun stuff.
I'm not sure if I'm saying her name. Veda Scott.
Veda Scott.
Is it Veda?
Veda.
Did I say Veda?
I always say Veda too. I'm like the worst of that. But she did so great on commentary. I think that's one of the first times AEW has brought her over for that role, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Jeremy?
Yeah, it's the first time. Yeah, this is kind of bringing her in. First time being on screen for AEW. And yeah, Veda's another independent women's wrestler who's been all over the place. She's also done a lot of commentary work too. She's done commentary for Ring of Honor and some other places before, so she does have that experience. Yeah, I think her and Tony did a great job, and it's great kind of having the women's wrestler perspective on the commentary.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it, and I gotta make a note. Even with Impact having Madison Rayne on the commentary team was was so great. You have to kind of it's enjoyable when that works, when you can have the woman's perspective in there, especially coming from wrestlers, so they know what they're talking about. Kind of what we see in NXT with, oh my gosh, why is the name escaping me right now?
Beth Phoenix.
Help me out. Beth Phoenix, thank you. I love it when she was brought on, and I feel like that's something that Raw and SmackDown can use. And now that when Renee was taken away from the team, I really enjoyed Renee in there too. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's always. I mean, I think especially in wrestling, female voices definitely need to be heard more, especially if there's women in the ring, get that woman wrestler perspective. Even just when it's two dudes in there. I mean, if you have a female wrestler that's a good announcer, put her on there. Let her talk about it because she knows those moves too.
Agreed.
And speaking of the production team, the second match was kind of an interesting introduction to it because I'm not the biggest fan of them using Medusa so much, but I get it. She's got a lot of history, obviously, on TNT. So Medusa comes out backstage and tells Dasha that she's going to take a draw, and she winds up getting paired with Rachel Ellering. So we got to see Rachel for the first time in an AEW ring. I saw Rachel wrestle a couple of times in NXT before she got hurt. And then I saw her as well with the Mae Young Classic too. I think Rachel is awesome. I'm excited to see her there. And I was also extremely excited to see their opponents, which we saw wrestle against each other on Dynamite, and that's Diamante and Ivelisse. This was a super awesome. I really enjoyed this match. It's probably my favorite match of the tag tournament so far. I thought all four women wrestled really hard. Dasha looked great, I thought, for someone who hasn't wrestled in a while. I think the last time, and I believe I read that she said this on Twitter, was like an NXT house show back in like 2014. So it's been a while.
Yeah, this was
And
actually.
we talked. Oh, sorry, Jeremy.
No, go ahead, Sandy.
No, I remember talking to you, Josh, about this. I think if it's the right show, I saw her at that NXT Largo show. It may have been a different one around the same time, but Dasha came out and she was in kind of like some nerdy gear. That was gonna be her gimmick. She was like a really nerdy girl, and she came in the ring, and I was like, oh, Dasha, it was great. I think she suffered some injuries prior to that because I remember she had a pretty big knee brace. I forget which leg it was, but it was really, really exciting to see her. We all know her from commentary, and I'm pretty sure she was doing commentary before, but she was getting in that ring, and it's very exciting. Of course, after that, we didn't really see her much. She kind of just stayed on the commentary track, which I thought she did great in WWE when they had her in the backstage segments. She shows personality. She shows a human connection rather than just a robot on the microphone interviewing people. So it was very. I would need to go back and watch this match. Just very excited to see her in that ring again.
Yeah, it's crazy. This was only her second match of her whole career, and her first match was that match 5 years ago at the Largo Loop show. Honestly, you couldn't really tell it. Like looking at obviously you watch her, you can tell she's a beginner. She's still very green. There were some points where she might have seemed like a little indecisive. Besides that, she's a great athlete, great personality. Like there was no single botches whatsoever. Like
No.
She looked pretty solid in there, and she's been training at the Flatback School, which is run by Tyler Breeze and Sean Spears here in Florida. And so she's been getting her reps in, and she looks really good. And I think with some time, getting more reps, more matches, like she's somebody that could be a star of the division.
Yeah, and I even made a note like we need to see her, I think, in the ring more, especially given that a lot of the talent is stuck overseas. There you have Statlander sidelined with a knee injury. You have Britt Baker, obviously, who's been on the sidelines with a knee injury. They need female wrestlers to step in here, and I think that Dasha is someone they can rely on. And you know what? She's already there, and I think she's not going to be as in demand as some of these other talents are. So I think you have a real shot here to have that homegrown talent kind of come through this. And I thought she looked great. You mentioned that she's, she's a great athlete. They brought up Titan games a few times. Once I heard the first time, I kind of started listening to it more. And then what's funny too is I noticed on Dynamite this week that Dwayne Johnson was mentioned by name. So AEW is kind of teasing a little bit of Dwayne Johnson, stuff, and even to the point where Jim Ross called Uranagi the rock bottom on the Dynamite broadcast,
Ooh.
which you know, you know, I don't know what they're trying to do, putting Dwayne over, but you know what, not that Dwayne needs any help getting over, but I thought there was a funny little wrinkle there. And then of course, the talk of the match was Diamante and Ivelisse. They've been training together for a long time. They're a pretty good team. Um, it kind of, like you say, Jeremy, there was some indecisiveness towards the end of the match with Dasha, kind of not necessarily like she knew where to go, but then she maybe second guessed her a little bit. But they wind up getting the win here for Diamante and Ivelisse, which sets up our semifinal matches, which will be the Swole Fam, as they started calling them towards the end of the broadcast, against the Nightmare Sisters. And then Ivelisse and Diamante against the team of Tay, as they've named themselves, Tay Conti and Anna Jay. And this sets up an interesting thing here because I think we all think that the Nightmare Sisters are just going to win this thing. I don't think that's the right call, but being that they're the only team with 2 signed wrestlers on it, and that fact that Brandy Rhodes is there, it feels like that's what it's going to be. So I'm thinking at the next Dynamite, which is going to be on the Saturday after the NBA playoffs, I think we're going to see the Nightmare Sisters wrestle against Ivelisse and Diamante for the final.
So I actually think that Nightmare Sisters are going to lose the tournament. I think they'll get to the finals, but we've been seeing this kind of relationship between Brandy and Allie over the last few months now, where it's kind of this kind of frenemy relationship that kind of they pretend to like each other, they hate each other. It's kind of weird, and last week Brandy started acting very heelish, talking about her, being the first woman to have action figures and kind of rubbing it in Allie's face. So I think they're going to get to the finals, but there's going to be some miscommunication, and one of them are going to turn on each other, and that's going to cost them the Deadly Draw tournament.
I surely hope so, because as soon as Josh said that they're probably going to win, I literally did a FaceTime over video. He couldn't see me, but if you heard a smack, that was me smacking my forehead with my palm.
Yeah, it's one of those things, we see this start and stop a lot with Brandy in the ring. The first show that I ever went to with you, Jeremy, was I believe it was it Fight for the Fallen up at Daly's place last year. And we saw a match between Allie and Brandy. It was not great. And you see this, the Nightmare Collective thing. You have these different ideas of putting Brandy in the ring. I kind of wish that they would just either go all in and just, no pun intended, push her as a wrestler and leave her in there, or just take her out completely and let the other women talent get some shine, get some opportunity. And I sure hope you're right. I hope there is, kind of even like a double turn or something where Allie becomes a face and Brandy goes full heel. We've seen teases of Cody going heel, so maybe the Nightmare family as a whole, kind of turns heel, and maybe QT and Allie become the faces out of that. Popular choice of the Largo Loop QT Marshall. So we'll see what happens. I'm entertained. It's on YouTube. Real easy watch. I mean, it's right about 45 minutes each episode.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit
I think
disappointed that the final is not going to be on the pay-per-view card. I wish that they would give the women that match on that card. But we're getting it on Dynamite instead of YouTube for the finals. And I guess that's good enough for now.
Yeah, and they've been doing pretty good YouTube numbers. I know the week one was almost 600,000 viewers on YouTube, which was higher than Dark for that week and
Yeah.
higher than a lot of the videos that they have on there. So
Oh, that's fantastic.
yeah, so it's definitely been a great attraction to the YouTube channel and getting a lot of eyeballs on these women as well. So yeah, pretty good.
And how beautiful does that cup look? Doesn't look hokey at all. It looks like a legitimate prize that's worth competing for. Because, like, oh my gosh, what was that one for WWE WrestleMania?
You're talking about the women's battle royal.
The one that looked like a uterus?
Yeah.
Oh my god! I wanted to cry.
That was not a great looking trophy.
No.
It looked like it was designed by a 12-year-old boy. I mean, quite frankly.
So bad.
Or maybe it was designed by 9-year-old Josh watching Monday Night Nitro with the channel flipper on. Who knows?
It's all you.
So,
I knew it.
Anyways, that's kind of the wrestling portion of what we wanted to talk about for this week. And we're going to shift gears here, and we're going to flip it over to talking about games. I'm a huge fan of video games. I've been playing them literally as long as I can remember. I know, Sandy, you're big into games. Jeremy, I know you play games. Yeah. We've talked, the three of us separately about video games. And now we're going to talk a little bit together about it. In the format that Sandy and I have kind of talked about for this program, just throwing it out there, there's going to be a weekly topic about video games, whether that be like this week's topic is going to be wrestling and video games. Future topics might be free-to-play games on cell phones, even for those of you that are casual gamers. Games that we're playing right now, new releases we're excited for, consoles that are coming out. So video games is as fast a topic that there really can be. And so if you want to hear us talk about something, feel free to tweet us at Suplex on Twitter and give us some suggestions. We're open to it. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. And I'll talk about anything video game related because chances are I've played it. I still have my collection of systems in the closet. I'm not allowed to keep all of them out at once, although I would love to. But I got everything still going back to the regular Nintendo, all the way up through my PS4 Pro. I have a Switch, obviously. We talked about Animal Crossing earlier, and so just to kind of like kick off that discussion, Jeremy, what was the first time that you remember wrestling being in video games, and kind of what hooked you into it, and what kind of made that a part of your regular video game playing?
Yeah, so I think the first wrestling game I can remember playing was for Sega Genesis. I believe it was Royal Rumble was the game.
Great game.
I'm picturing I think like Lex Luger, like Macho Man was on the cover of the game. And so yeah, that like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the show, I've been watching wrestling since I was like 2 or 3. My whole family used to be really big into wrestling and also into video games too. And so also being a big wrestling fan and having video games, you have to get the wrestling video game. And so yeah, that was the first game I can remember playing. And the wrestling video games have always been a big part of my life as well. And playing those games and trying to relive the matches. And Shawn Michaels growing up was my favorite wrestler, so always play as Shawn and would put him over in all the games and make him win all the belts and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Sandy, what was your first experience with wrestling and video games?
So I've been playing video games longer than I've been watching wrestling. I was born and raised in Colombia, and I previously, before moving to the United States, I had no idea what wrestling even was. I think I found out about wrestling even before I knew how to speak English properly. But I was playing video games in Colombia, and I never once saw like any wrestling video games over there. I was busy playing Super Mario and Zelda. Like Zelda's like my favorite game next to Maniac Mansion. If any listeners out there have played Maniac Mansion, or even if you guys have played it, my number one favorite game in the whole entire world. It's a point and click adventure game. Love those games. But it wasn't until after I started watching wrestling when I was scrolling through the channels and I'm like, what in the heck is happening there? Attitude Era, 1998. No, I think it was 99, maybe 2000. that's when I got hooked. And of course, getting hooked into it, it's like, okay, where can I get more of this? Instead of just watching once a week and the pay-per-views, I need more. Give me more. So I convinced my mom to buy me, I believe it was WWF Attitude, which came out in '99. That was the one that came out shortly after Owen Hart's death, if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember it had like a little like tribute, like that it was dedicated to Owen Hart. So that was my first wrestling video game. So I was like, okay, my first love is video games, and now I'm obsessed with wrestling. And holy crap, they make a video game of wrestling. Sign me up. So that was my very first one. And you know what's so funny? I actually have to share some pictures with you guys of all my video game systems. I still have them all, and they're kind of working. I just moved to an apartment that has a little loft upstairs, and I have an old TV up there, this 9-cube furniture piece where I have them all in there, and they're all connected, and I'm making them work whether they want to or not. They're going to turn on, damn it, and I'm going to play. And the other day I actually got to play WWF Attitude. Not as good as I remember, like with most things from back in that day. You were like, why was I obsessed with this? And yeah, it wasn't very good. I don't even understand, but that was my very first one, and it'll always have a special spot in my heart because of that.
That's awesome, and we'll throw up the pictures of the systems, the video game system collections on our Twitter feed there, because I'll kind of show off. I'll flex too, and show off mine. And, Jeremy, I don't know if you got any retro consoles still. I know you're rolling with the Xbox family, but
yeah, growing up, we had all the consoles growing up, and at my parents' house, yeah, the Sega Genesis is still there, the N64, Super Nintendo. My brother has some of them hooked up, but yeah, we still have some of our consoles. Maybe I'll next time I go over there try and grab some pics and some of the stuff that we have.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah. So my first experience, like I said, growing up, we had a regular Nintendo, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and we always had this game that none of us could beat. Me, my brother, my dad, we just gave up on it, and it was tag team wrestling for the Nintendo Entertainment System, where it is so difficult, and I have never won a match in it, and I fancy myself as someone that's pretty good at video games. I've beaten the original Ninja Gaiden, so for people that are listening, that's a very tough game historically.
Oh my God, yeah.
People have, a lot of those side scroller action games, I've played through those, beat those. I cannot figure out how to win at tag team wrestling, and supposedly you don't ever actually you don't beat it. You win 10 matches, then you get the belt, and then you have to keep defending that belt, and then eventually you lose. That's the way I understand it. I've never experienced anything past the first match, so I can't confirm that. But I remember vividly playing it. And then years later, it's funny because there's a masked wrestler that you face in that game who later served as the inspiration for the turn of the century video website homestarrunner.com. There's a character named Strong Bad, and his design was modeled after that masked wrestler in tag team wrestling on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So that's your nerd fact of the day. But it was, I had fun playing it as a kid. I don't know why I had fun playing it as a kid, because I got my ass beat every single time. But like I mentioned before, the game that really got me in love with professional wrestling and video games, the first one was WCW versus NWO. It might have even just been WCW World Tour. And then the follow-up to that game, which was WCW versus NWO Revenge on the Nintendo 64. I mean,
that was such a good one. I want to find it. I don't have it in my collection anymore.
Well, when you come over for cookies, we'll play it, because I still have the cartridge. I shouldn't say still have.
Nice.
A couple of Christmases ago, my siblings and I, we started doing name draws, because our families, especially as my brother started having kids, I started having kids. My sister has a kid now, or one of my sisters does, and there's just so many people to buy Christmas presents for. So we started doing name draws. Well, my brother gets me one Christmas, and he buys me some Jack Daniels and every wrestling Nintendo 64 game he could find. And so, which was awesome. I mean, he got me
awesome.
8. He got me. I had 8 carts that I pulled out of that Christmas present. And I don't know how he stayed under the $20 thing. I think it's because I'm his favorite sibling that he went over it. But that's perhaps a topic for not a podcast. Um, but yeah, I mean, WCW versus NWO Revenge. I mean, I can't, like, me and my friends would sit down and play this game just nonstop. It didn't matter if they were wrestling fans. It didn't matter if they were video gamers at all. Everyone sat down to play WCW versus NWO Revenge, and it was awesome. Just the roster size alone, it had everybody from WCW in it. I don't think there's anybody from WCW that's not in it. And then they also had non-WCW wrestlers that were Japanese wrestlers that there were some licensing issues. So for here in the States, they kind of reskinned them and called them something different. But I used, as pretty much every time, a wrestler named Hanzo Man, who was modeled after Hayabusa. And he did this like jump back kick thing that would knock people out. Like if you were recall in that game, you can do TKO matches where they start to get up and then they just fall back down to the mat, punch out style, and that was kind of it was just awesome. I mean, I could go on and on about the game. I mean, Chris Jericho's in the game, Rey Mysterio's in the game. I mean, every person you could think of, it was just awesome. You could get Harlem Heat going. I don't know.
That was a really solid video game.
It was, and then also you had all the managers out there too. Yeah, that was the first game I really remember that the managers were actively a part of it. You could literally be sitting there wrestling a match, and out of nowhere, Dusty Rhodes hits you with an elbow. What is that about? So, but it's wrestling in video games. It's not all good. There's been some bumps in the road. And most notably, even with the 2K games, last year's 2K game was broken. It was very glitchy. There's still ways to have fun with it, but it just felt like a rushed product. It felt like the game studio didn't devote enough time to really making sure they were putting out a completed game. And I know, Jeremy, you played the 2K games. Where do they come back from this? I mean, how do they fix it in your mind to make it a game that you want to buy in the future?
So I think so far they've kind of made the right step on not releasing a new game this year, and definitely I think just going back to the drawing board and kind of saying, all right, how do we make this game better? How do we change it? Because honestly, I feel like with all the 2K games, it's honestly been a cut and paste of the previous game, and they just added the new wrestlers and took wrestlers out, and maybe added one or two features, but they really didn't spend a lot of time working on the gameplay, making the functionality better. They didn't really pay attention to a lot of the finer details. They just kind of copy and pasted and just give it a little facelift. And so I think they need to take this year off, reevaluate the game, see how they can make the gameplay better, make it more functional, and just incorporate features that wrestling video game fans have been clamoring for, and just really pay some attention to detail. I mean, there's so much detail in wrestling. There's so many different characters and personalities and maneuvers, and taking the time to make sure that all flows and making the match fun to play. Some of it they probably went a little bit too much trying to make it too realistic, and that made some of the gameplay a little bit clunky instead of making it a little bit more fast moving. But yeah, they seem to kind of look back. I think they should look back at the SmackDown series. I thought the SmackDown series were really well done. Here Comes the Pain was my favorite in that series, and there was just so much functionality there, and the customization of wrestlers, and the season mode was great, and kind of walking through kind of the big storylines that were happening there, and you can put anybody in the season mode and kind of go through that. And so, yeah, I think we just need to kind of be a little creative and kind of break the mold, and just kind of, instead of doing the whole cookie cutter copy and paste kind of model they've been doing.
Absolutely agree. The SmackDown games were really up there as far as the creativity. It was just very exciting every time I remember getting the SmackDown game, so put it on and play, and I knew that I was going to be excited and happy to play it. past few 2K games, it's like, all right, let's see if we can get through the glitches this time around. Let's see if we can actually play it. Let's see if this download will actually work. And I feel like they just got complacent. Exactly like you said, Jeremy. It's just copy and paste. Maybe it's time to explore a contract with a different publisher, with a different developer. Maybe it's time to just completely start new, start fresh, rather than kind of see what we can salvage from the previous 2K installment. But who knows? I absolutely think you're right, where deciding to skip the release for this year was the right choice, especially after the disaster that was the game last year. So hopefully better things will come from next year. We'll see.
Yeah, and they are still releasing a game. It's just not the yearly 2K game. It is 2K
Yeah.
Battlegrounds, which is looking
It's just
much
like
more
the
in the vein
mobile
of.
one, isn't it?
No, it's a little bit different. So this one's more in the vein of like that old All Stars game, where it's a little bit more cartoony. The commercial for it has, I think, John Cena being thrown into the jaws of an alligator, which I don't know how the alligator knew he was coming because you can't see him, but that's neither here nor there. Um, Sorry, Jeremy, I had to. It was just right there. Um, you know, I think the problem with the WWE 2K games, like you said, it's the copy paste. It's uncreative. It's just do the same thing we always did, and I think that mirrors a lot of what's going on in WWE right now. We're not a WWE podcast, but they mirror each other, right? If WWE is not investing in their product that they're putting out and trying to make it as creative and new and fresh, it's going to reflect that in the other medias that they put out. And so I think, there's a good opportunity for them to jump back and say, okay, let's restart this, especially since there is going to be a publisher that's going to get signed for an AEW game at some point. That Kenny Omega's heavily involved with trying to help kind of get that thing launched. And I'll say, at this point, I'd be more interested in trying that game whenever it comes out than picking up another yearly 2K release.
Yeah, and also Aubrey Edwards, one of the head referees, she's had an experience. She used to work in video game design before she got into wrestling and became a referee, and so she's also working on that video game with Kenny. And I think it's going to be very creative, and I think they're going to have a completely different approach to it. There's also another wrestling game that's in the works. I don't know if you guys have heard of. I think it's called Virtual Basement. It's like the video game company, and it's like an independent wrestling game, and like they're getting all these independent wrestlers, and it's supposed to be coming out sometime, I think maybe the next year or so, and they've been working on that. And so I'm pretty interested to see kind of how the gameplay of that's going to be, especially featuring so many independent talents. A lot of times in the games you create your favorite independent guy or you download your favorite independent guy, but to actually have them scanned and modeled and to be able to play as some of these indie guys should be pretty cool as well.
Yeah, that's a Retromania.
I just hope that Retromania. Okay. Yeah. I just really hope that the Corona situation didn't prevent that project from moving forward. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, Corona's had a weird impact on video games as a whole. You've seen, release delays because they don't know how they can ship things. The Final Fantasy VII remake earlier this year got pushed back. That was at one point going to be a holiday release last year. Wound up releasing, I believe, in April this year. Last of Us Part 2 got pushed back. Cyberpunk got pushed back. Corona's really messed up a lot of stuff. And obviously, both topics of this podcast have been impacted greatly for it. I'm looking forward to the day that we don't have to talk about coronavirus messing up our daily lives, messing up the entertainment that we're trying to enjoy. But I will say this, hey, God bless the people that are still going out every week and doing it in the most safe way possible. To try and entertain people, give somebody, something to smile about. We up until recently, we didn't have any other pro sports. So the wrestlers have really been taking, a lot of bumps. A lot of guys have gotten opportunities because of it to take some extra bumps. And, shout out to all those guys and, to everyone that's out there trying their damnedest to earn a paycheck and keep entertaining people.
Sure, man.
So with that, we're going to head towards signing off. We're going a little bit longer than I expected. We joked before that we did not want to hit a certain time of the night before starting pushing the record button, and we are approaching that time that we said that we did not want to get to. So real quick, let's just go around. Outside of Impact, outside of the AEW Women's Tag Team Tournament, the Deadly Draw, what was one match that you think the listeners should go and take a look at? Jeremy, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so for me, if you are a subscriber of NJPW World, or if you want to use some other methods, I think you should watch the opening match of the New Japan Cup USA, which featured Carl Fredericks, the Alpha Wolf, taking on Kenta. It was a very hard-hitting match, great way to kick off the U.S. version of the New Japan Cup. And yeah, definitely think it's a match you should check out.
Awesome. Sandy, what's your one match?
My one match for this week has got to be Heather Monroe versus Hikaru Shida in AEW Dynamite, where it was a women's world title match. I completely enjoyed it. It was very short and straight to the point, but it got to showcase an independent wrestler whom I'm not very familiar with. But I feel like if anyone who's like me, who doesn't really know much about this wrestler, this is able to kind of showcase her in a way like, oh man, I want to see more of her. Who is this Heather Monroe chick? The match was very aggressive from the get-go. Cheetah looked great. Monroe looked great. I love how you could see how mean her strikes looked. Like, it was brutal. Like, she was actually getting in there, and it's like, okay, this is my chance. This is my shot. I'm going in there, and I'm going to throw those elbows, and I'm going to throw those punches, and I'm going to make it look like I am here for a reason, and that is to win. Which, I mean, hello, that's what pro wrestling is. You're in there. You're in a match. You're in a fight. You're in a bout. You have to give it your all. And I feel like Heather Monroe did this absolutely perfectly. They were absolutely brutal. They both looked great. Like I said, even though it was a very short match, I really enjoyed what Monroe was able to showcase here, and I'm excited to see more of her.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and anytime we get to see Hikaru Shida, not a bad night. My one match, you know what? Throw up AEW Dark. Take a look at Lee Johnson versus Phoenix. Lee Johnson sells his ass off for Phoenix, and Phoenix just razzles and dazzles every week. It's the Rey Mysterio fan in me, the Lucha fan in me, that anytime I see a masked wrestler do something, it's 5 stars out at the top. I'm a subscriber to Rich Latta Pro Wrestling. The more flips, the more acrobatics, the more interested I get. But really check that out. Phoenix is great. Lee Johnson is one of those guys that stepped up in the times of COVID here to really take a lot of bumps, get squashed a lot on Dark and on Dynamite early on in the pandemic. So shout out to that guy. That's it for us. The first episode of the podcast. We thank you for listening. We hope you tune in next week. Check out all of the podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcasting Network on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Twitter at 8BitSuplex. And you know what? While you're at it, head on over to manscaped.com. Throw in the promo code SUPLEX. Get yourself 20% off and free shipping. And that's it. With that, I bid you adieu. And we're signing off. Sandy, say goodbye.
Bye, you guys. I do want to mention one little plug here, if you guys don't mind me.
By all means.
Definitely 8-Bit Suplex, definitely all the social suplex networks and shows that we have available. Jeremy, thank you so much for giving us a chance to do the show with you and for the audience. I really hope you guys like it. I am on social media. As Josh mentioned before, I am training to be a pro wrestler. I've had a couple of matches, which actually you can check out on the Fight TV app or on Fight.tv. If you guys look up Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling, you get to see all of our previous shows there. So check that out and follow me on Twitter. I am at Sailor Zelda. Yes, I love Sailor Jupiter, and yes, I love The Legend of Zelda. So that's that right there. And you can find me on Instagram at Sandy Gaviria. The last name spelling there, Gaviria. If anything, I'm sure you guys can find me on Twitter, and hopefully we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Jeremy, you got anything else you want to throw out there, buddy?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jeremy L. Donovan. You can follow at Social Suplex, and that's where you can all of our shows. Like Josh said, make sure you subscribe, support all the shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and I'm looking forward to more 8-Bit Suplex episodes, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so
Yay!
much, everyone. Subscribe. Throw us 5 stars. If this was a Dave Meltzer app, you could throw 6, but they cap us at 5. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.